Recording. A recording. Yay! We are here. Because no one's ever really gone. Hello, welcome back to the Waffle Press Retrospectives. I'm your host, Diego Crespo. With me today is my co-host, Matt Caringo.
Hi.
We are calm, cool, and collected because we are going to talk about the Star Wars franchise.
We give out the least number of death threats of the Star Wars podcast.
We might, actually.
We didn't pull an entire commentary track from going public because I maybe got a little too intense about my feelings.
It's fine. It's fine. The Rise of Skywalker commentary track available over on the Patreon.
Check out the Patreon.
Yeah, there's stuff over there right now.
There is, in fact, stuff over there.
Yes.
There is.
Because by the time this comes out, there'll be a couple other retrospectives. We're wrapping up the Failed Award Contender Season 2. Getting ready for...
Yeah, how many of those do we still have left to drop?
3 or 4, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah. So one of them will be, or 2 of them will be out. So maybe like 1 or 2 will be available on Patreon. And then there will be one more thing.
There will be the edit of the one episode that I did not want released publicly because I thought I did a bad job.
It was good, but you wanted to do it again, and it was totally fine because it was still a productive conversation.
I've only ever done that. I think that's like the only second time I've maybe done that where I asked to redo an episode.
It's fine.
I could be wrong. And I wish I did it more often. Because sometimes I get to the end of recording, I go like, I could have made that point better. But...
No. I sometimes I gotta have an outline for myself too, and I think you could tell when I don't really have.
But I do have the outline is the problem, but then like I forget that I am just generally an incoherent person.
It's fine.
So...
It's fine. We are more coherent than a lot of other people who talk about stuff because I don't think we're like the most knowledgeable people or anything like that. But I do think we're more knowledgeable than a lot of other people who record podcasts about maybe Star Wars movies and stuff.
No, I'll give them this. They probably know more about Star Wars than we do.
Here's the thing. It's like they're people that maybe know about cars, right? Mm. But then some of those people who know about cars are like, yeah, and that's why women can't drive. You know? That's kind of like a lot of the Star Wars podcasting community. Not everyone. But there are definitely people out there who fit that description. I just
there
can't.
Are people
you know, like
do that.
Yeah.
Well, I always call that the get woke, go broke grift. Because it's such a naked grift. It's guys who they go. Because here's the thing, Hollywood. I don't know if you know this, Diego, but Hollywood mostly makes crap. There are 2 consistents in the world, which is that 90% of the stuff that comes out of Hollywood each year is garbage, right? That has been true since the founding of Hollywood, right?
Yes.
Are you with me so far?
I'm with you.
There's another thing that's true, which is that the world has gotten more diverse in the past century than it was a century ago, correct?
Yes.
Those are 2 constants.
This is true.
Now, correlation does not equal causation. Especially if it's causing nothing to fundamentally change. So our movies are more diverse, and 90% of them are terrible. So those 2 things can be true, correct? One didn't cause the other. It's just what happens. As the world gets more diverse, culture gets more diverse, and most of our culture is garbage. But these guys come along and they try and go, you know what? Things were good until things got diverse. And they make it look like that something has fundamentally changed in the studio system, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, things have changed in the studio system, but in the culture as a whole, it's still that. And there's the survivorship bias, which is we remember all the good stuff from 10 years ago and we forget most of the bad stuff. Like, what's a movie you think you could bring up right now that came out 10 years ago that was terrible and is just forgotten?
Well, the problem is I forgot about it, so I can't think about it.
Well, I'm looking at a shelf right now full of movies.
Uh-huh.
Does anyone remember Balls of Fury?
Whoa, yeah, I do remember that actually, but like
When
only
was it?
because you brought it up.
Yeah, 2007 was like was marketed heavily. People thought it was going to be the next Dodgeball because Dodgeball was big at the
Hmm.
time. Made $40 million at the box office. No one.
Also, 2007 was not 10 years ago. I'm sorry to break
But
it to you. It
I've
was
extended my. I said I just picked the first movie I saw on a shelf.
okay,
You
okay.
know. I mean, there's Grilled, the movie with Kevin James and Ray Romano that came out. Does anyone remember that?
Oh, nope, I have not the slightest clue of what you're
I think
referring
that's one of
to.
those movies that like barely got released. But
Hmm.
that's a lot of these are from the late 2000s because it was when blockbusters were shutting down. So I just bought a bunch of these DVDs. But I mean, you know what I'm talking about, right?
I do.
And,
Yeah, let me
and the
see. Let
further
me
we get removed from this stuff, like we're the only people that are going to remember it. Does the next generation even know about the movie Fever Pitch with Jimmy
No.
Fallon? Do people even know Jimmy Fallon used to do movies?
Probably not.
Yeah.
The most popular thing Jimmy Fallon has going for him right now is that time Nicole Kidman told him that she thought they were going on a blind date together and he fucked it up,
Mhm.
which is very funny. It's the funniest thing he's
It
ever
is. It
done.
is very funny, but
Yes.
I'm just saying, like, I don't think
No, no, you're right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm just making my
Or
point about that. Like, we only remember the good stuff of culture and not the bad stuff. And frankly, the Star Wars, multimedia nature of Star Wars means there's a lot of shitty Star Wars stuff out there.
would you say there's more shitty Star Wars stuff out there now than ever?
No, I just think the shitty stuff is more expensive than it ever used to be.
Yeah, that's where I'm at too. Yeah, no, I think people forget the EU is really bad, and
Mhm.
thankfully there's less people calling out for the return of the EU.
Yeah, I'm gonna be kind of a nice person and say I don't know if saying the EU is really bad is the right way to look at it, but there are huge chunks of the EU that are just forgettable, right?
Hmm.
And even the good stuff, after a while, it felt like it was treading water, you know?
Yeah.
Like it was the constant. Um, there's good Jedi. One of them turns evil, kills some of the good Jedi. Then that guy gets redeemed at the end, and then shit. Like that was the last like 10 years of the original EU. Was just that happening over and over again. And then Luke Skywalker is also there.
And there's a clone. There's also a clone of a bad guy, and then sometimes a good guy.
Yeah, where like there's also like that weird era where they didn't know what the Clone Wars were. So
Oh yeah.
like like there's that lore kind of tied into it. Where that one guy was supposed to be a clone of Obi-Wan Kenobi in Heir to the Empire. And then like they were like, no, you can't do that. So they just made him kind of like an original guy. But there's there's not much you can do with the Star Wars setting unless you're injecting some new stuff into it.
Yeah, which is why people have called for Knights of the Old Republic era stuff and whatever. And like in the books right now, there is the High Republic, which is the prequel to the prequel era. And I didn't announce what this was, but we're doing a
We're
Star
doing
Wars
a May the
special.
4th Star Wars.
Yeah, we do it every year. Matt was like, "Did we do one last year? If not, let's not do it." And I was
Yeah,
like, "We
yeah,
did, so we should."
yeah. So why not? We haven't broken it yet.
No, no, we got thoughts though. We got
But
enough to talk
also,
about.
I just want to point out what you just said, where you're like, people want more, and then you point out the Old Republic and the High Republic, right?
Uh huh. I know
And
exactly where
hey,
you're going with this.
yeah, exactly. It's like there's Old Republic, High Republic, New Republic. Like there's and the Republic right in the middle of it,
Yeah.
like which barely is an era anymore. But actually, it's probably has the Republic era probably has the most, at least for a while, had like the most expanded universe stuff until they started pushing more towards like Empire and post Empire stuff. But
Hmm.
I think you're starting to notice some recurring things.
I am.
And uh, also, you go all the way back to the Old Republic, which I believe is the Old Republic 30,000 years before the regular
It's tens
start.
of thousands of years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's something like that, something like 30,000. And for all that time, it is still republics versus empires. and it is still Jedi versus Sith, and there are only so many stories you can tell with that. And I think Disney is going to learn that problem in the hardest, most expensive way possible. So we'll see where all that's going.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about all the stuff that's happened in the year since the last recording. We'll start off by talking about what has come out since last May 2022. Obviously, the big thing was the Obi-Wan series, which I have not seen, and I think
You know what? Jesus Christ. Fucking, I asked Diego before the
No,
recording.
wait. No, I think it actually came out before. I think we talked about it, about not watching it last year,
Yeah,
right?
but it might have been one of those ones where it had it just come out because there was a few things.
No, you know what? You're right. I fucked up in the pre-recording discussion. I fucked up. It came out after that last recording. That's
Yeah,
my bad.
it was like about to come out, and we were both
Yeah.
like, I was like, here's what you could actually do a really interesting Obi-Wan series. And I pitched my version, which is like Obi-Wan has to go from the Jedi are this powerful, respected order to now he's like a bum living in like a fucking little shack on the edge of a fucking shitty town. And it's like you could do like a really interesting character-driven show. And then it turns out they didn't do that at all.
No.
So
No, they just had it be
they just
like
had the
a
people come
Clone
back.
Wars episode, but
They
live
just
action.
they reminded you all those toys you bought years ago exist. So,
Yeah. I don't know what happened. I've only seen clips and images from it. Deborah Chow did some really great work in the first season of The Mandalorian. She's a solid director. Don't really know what happened. I think it looks really cheap. I
it's almost like there's the money is getting spread thin across all of Disney products.
it
It's almost like they are investing way too much money in their stupid streaming service and the original programming going towards it. And now they don't have enough money to actually support the individual shows they're making.
That's exactly what it looks like. And it's
Yeah.
a bummer because it's like how hyped was a lot of the fan base for like the return of Obi-Wan. People
Yeah.
love Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan. I love Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan. You and I have both said our piece about like, yeah, I liked these elements. I don't need to see them all the time.
Mm.
And it looks like a lot of people felt the same way by the end of it because people don't talk about it anymore.
Yeah, it
So,
seems to already have just left. And
yeah.
it's also that thing of the other thing that has happened is there's been another season of The Mandalorian, and when we talked about The Mandalorian, we would be like, we weren't exactly the biggest fans of The Mandalorian, you know,
Yeah, but there was stuff I liked.
but we could both agree that it actually looked pretty good, right? That
Mhm.
it looked like we're getting like a mini Star Wars movie once a week, which is kind of cool, right?
Yeah.
Like and now it just looks like every other fucking thing on their streaming service.
Now, did you see any of this new season? I think we can kind of skip over Obi-Wan just because we didn't watch
Yeah,
it, you know?
well, I checked out some of Obi-Wan, and it was mainly clips on YouTube.
Okay.
And I was just like, because like I was like, I don't need this, and it didn't hit, and like it wasn't engaging. I watched the first episode and forgot about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so that's my experience with Obi-Wan. Maybe it's great. Most people I know who watched it didn't seem to like it. And I was happy to see Hayden Christensen kind of back, considering he kind of got a raw deal with the fandom initially.
There's a really sweet clip of him at Star Wars Celebration this year, and he's like holding back tears because the crowd's going fucking wild. I'm like, yeah, it's Star Wars Celebration, but you know, like that's a nice thing to
Considering
see.
how he was treated before that, is a little. It's good to see. Although, frankly, Star Wars fans should just apologize to him.
Yeah.
Like they were really cruel to him, and they're trying to act like we've always loved him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, I was there, man.
Yeah.
Like,
I have a
was there.
thought about that because there's an element of The Mandalorian this season that I did like, but you know, people talked about. I'm just gonna say it, Ahmed Best coming back. You're like, oh, he's been redeemed, and it's like, what are you talking about? He's not the one that needed redemption. All
Yeah.
you fuckers out there who are like made him basically he said like on the verge of like suicide.
Yeah, you fucking drove that guy insane.
That is
Like,
so awful. So no, I don't.
because
I don't
he played
stand
a
for any of that.
character you didn't like. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not here to defend the honor of Jar Jar Binks,
I
but
will defend Jar Jar
yeah, sure.
Binks.
I think I do still have some dignity, but but it was never his fault, you know. Like,
Yeah.
and it is sad when you go look at those like older interviews where you can tell he's clearly excited to be part of Star Wars. Same with Hayden Christensen, and then it's like, dude, you get so much shit now for like a decade, and then they come around and act like they didn't do that to you. That's kind of fucked up.
Hmm.
Like, and
Yeah, this is the literal least everyone could do for these people.
yeah, it's. I mean, there's a really sad. If you bought the first box set of Star Wars on DVD, which was like a big deal when that happened when the original trilogy hit DVD. You remember how hype that was?
I do remember that.
And on the bonus disc, one of the things you can get is the what is it? What's the word I'm looking for? The
Special
like a
features?
what?
There
There
Special
is there
features?
is a special feature that is a preview for Episode 3 because it wasn't out yet.
Oh.
And part of it was you're going to get to see them make the Darth Vader helmet. Like they showed like them making it for the first time in forever and talking
Ah.
about like working with old concept art and shit like that. And it's also hysterical to think about back to how much Darth Vader was in the marketing for Revenge of the Sith, considering he's in less than like 2 minutes of that movie. Which is like whatever, like that. I'm not. That doesn't matter, but it is kind of like, hey George, I know what you're doing. Um, but there's a part where they were like, we were gonna get an actor to do Darth Vader, right? That was gonna come in
Hmm.
and be the body for Darth Vader when he's on the bridge, and he basically just stands there next to a guy who looks like Tarkin and is already building the Death Star. And Hayden Christensen was like, no, I want to be in the Darth Vader suit. And like they basically bought like, like elevator shoes for him and let him be Darth Vader in that scene. So he's the one under the costume in that scene because he was so hyped to do it. And it's like, that's really endearing. Like, he didn't have to. He really didn't.
Yeah.
Like, no one was going to know. And he was like, no, I'll do it. And I'm like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
And it's just a shame then people be like, fucking guy can't act. He ruined Star Wars, which was the fucking conversation forever.
Yeah.
And that is a line that was like the common criticism of those films, and that was a line that even like the Red Letter Media guys wouldn't cross. You
Hmm.
know, like they were like, it's not. They were willing to go like, it's not his fault, which was not the consensus for a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, They mocked the shit out of him in Clerks too.
God,
Like,
yeah. I mean, has
although
any
like,
movie aged as bad as Clerks 2? Like, I'm not a
oh
Kevin Smith hater,
yeah,
but like,
I still don't really hate Clerks too.
okay.
Like, but I also did watch that at a very specific point in my life.
I
So
also saw it in high school, yes.
yeah, yeah. And but it is one of those where it's I think it's been hurt more by like what Kevin Smith did after it than where it's like I don't mind the ending being like actually they were their happiest when they were working at the Quick Stop, right?
Hmm.
And it's like that's not, that's a really Gen X idea of just like actually I was happy where I was at and the real world's bullshit. It's a little bit like the Train Spotting sequel. Of just like you kind of want to go back, but like can you and can you not and all that shit. And I kind of like that there's that angle to it, but then for those characters, it just like there's nothing wrong with just if you want to work at a convenience store your whole life. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that,
Hmm.
Like I'm like that's fine, and
Especially right now in culture where we're all realizing that a lot of careers are bullshit,
yeah,
Not all of
like
them, but like a lot of this. I'm pointing to everything with flailing arms and jazz hands right now.
yeah,
It's not built to last like people were told it was.
yeah.
And we're all kind of working through that
And
in
they're
our own
all
way.
built on business models that stopped working 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And we just kept chugging along because a bunch of people are invested in it.
Uh-huh.
But that's a whole other thing that it's just that's been hurt by then like what Kevin Smith has done since then. Which I'm not saying like Kevin Smith hasn't done bad things. He's made movies I don't like, right?
Hmm.
But like the Last Jay and Silent Bob movie and Clerks 3, from what I understand, are like the exact opposite of what I want to see in any art. Like,
I have not seen either of those.
the new
But,
Jay and Silent Bob is like a celebration of like geek culture.
oh, that's the last thing we need right now.
Yeah, and it was like that's not no.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I think I've made it clear. Like, I'm a Kevin Smith fan. I'm not a fan of his art per se, but he seems like a guy I would get along with.
yeah, he seems like he's an interesting guy.
Yeah, he's a goofy nerd. He's the poster child for like the goofy nerd that became really popular. But instead of being nice and crying about the stuff he really enjoyed, the other people that kind of picked up the ball from him were like, and this is why I hate women.
Yeah.
And it's like, no.
Like fanboys.
Yeah, which is the worst film ever made.
Yeah.
But you know what? Here's the nice thing I'll say. Because I'm going to be really mean for a little bit. Because I'll talk about Andor, but I think I want to get the Mandalorian stuff out of the way. I would like to see Kevin Smith direct an episode of The Mandalorian. He did some episodes of The Flash, and I believe an episode of Supergirl back in the day.
He did an episode of Supergirl. He was big in that whole like arena. Like they kind of like kept bringing him back.
Yeah, well, he's like people like working with him, and he's a good television director. I really think he had kind of the juice there. Maybe he should have done more TV than feature films. I don't know at this point.
I think he could have benefited from smaller scale stuff that maybe he didn't write. Not saying he's a bad writer, but there is a limit to how often I want to see his voice on the screen.
Yeah,
But although I would love to see someone else direct a Kevin Smith script.
I'm going to put this out into the world. Kevin, if you still want to make Moose Jaws, call me. I would fucking do crime to direct Moose Jaws.
Should it just be called Moose Jaw?
No.
I get it, but like Moose Jaw is like a real place.
I don't care.
All
Moose
right.
Jaws.
All right.
It's Jaws, but with a moose.
I know.
I'm sorry. That's a slam dunk.
I'm a big Red State and Tusk defender. So
I got you on Red State at least. Not to the extent that you are defending it, but I get you. I can't really get there with Tusk, but
Tusk is just a wild.
Go with God.
Tusk is a kind of wild little movie that I didn't expect it to be this weird movie about how Kevin Smith maybe doesn't like himself that much.
No, that's the thing. It's a movie I don't really enjoy in a way that's not boring. It is not a boring movie. It is him taking a swing that I don't think worked.
It's like also
but
like
it's a fucking swing.
Michael Parks just being allowed to do whatever he wanted in that movie, which is kind of fascinating.
Michael Parks is legit great in that.
Is that his last movie? No, he did a few more. He was one of those guys who worked until the end. So,
speaking of stuff that doesn't work, all right, we got to talk about The Mandalorian. Because the last time we talked about the Book of Boba Fett, and you and I seemed to be like moderately positive on it, and everyone else was like, fuck this.
Yeah.
So The Mandalorian, the problem I had after the Book of Boba Fett was that having the character of Baby Yoda and The Mandalorian reunite in a separate show entirely kind of negates the emotional catharsis I felt in Season 2. There's that incredible moment where Baby Yoda is going to leave with horrible war criminal Luke Skywalker robot CGI creation. Everyone should go to prison who's responsible for that. I believe that. But the moment that works is the farewell between the Mandalorian and Baby Yoda. He takes off his helmet so they can see their true faces to each other. And it's a beautifully tragic moment where he knows he can't be the guy to raise this kid who he's grown to care about. He's made him a better person. It's the entire culmination of the story. And then they just get back together. And then
on a show that's not The Mandalorian, when one other Mandalorian says to the Mandalorian, hey, did you take your helmet off? And he was like, oh, I never thought I'd be asked this question. And immediately folds. That was a weird scene in the Book of Boba Fett.
Oh, it gets even weirder. So you have not seen The Mandalorian Season 3,
no,
right?
But hold on. Like, I just want to make a point real quick, which is what I think is the fundamental problem of The Mandalorian and a lot of these Star Wars shows is that they can't decide which show they want to be, which includes suddenly becoming the Book of Boba Fett in the middle there.
Yeah. I mean, Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, like Baby Yoda, who's got a name that I never remember.
It doesn't matter.
Uh,
It's not worth it.
okay. Like that. It's so like, all right. Have they been on the record being like this is inspired by Lone Wolf and Cub? Have they said that?
I don't know if they've ever actually said that, but I think everyone knows that.
Yeah,
You know.
like it's just, which is like that is fine. Like a premise like Lone Wolf and Cub isn't a actual premise that is meant to be solved, you know?
Hmm.
Like it is a premise so that they can go to a new town every story and get in a new adventure, right?
Right.
That is what The Mandalorian should be. It should just be them constantly going from town to town and getting in new adventures. Instead, it is half that, but the other half is like weird expanded universe stuff that is trying to quote unquote fix the sequel trilogy, right? And also set up 20 different spin-offs so they can have some big like Star Wars fucking endgame, you know?
Hmm.
Like that, like you can't make those two work together. You have to be one or the other. And that to me has been the fundamental problem with The Mandalorian is that it is simultaneously a show with this massive overarching plot that is supposed to be of great importance and involves key players like Luke Skywalker and Ahsoka and all that shit, while also being this like traveling gun for hire with a baby type story, you know?
Hmm.
And I'm not saying like you can't get to like it would be that thing of like you do a Mandalorian show and then the ending is Mandalorian the movie where all that stuff comes to a head. I wouldn't mind that. Because it's the other example, which is also very Lone Wolf and Cub inspired, is something like Samurai Jack, which I think we both love,
Hmm.
which is a show that is never built to solve its premise. Every episode, Jack is trying to get back to the past, right?
Yeah.
That's every episode. It wasn't until that last season where they're like, okay, we're actually going to have a real plot that needs to be solved here.
And the stroke of genius of that last season is kickstarting that season with like Jack having to be introspective, and he's got like this psychological component
Yeah,
of himself where he hates himself for not being able to like reckon with his mission. It's like you've forgotten your purpose. Like that's like a
yeah.
line he says to himself in that show, and it's like, okay, that's the way to fold that in on itself, right? Now
It
here's
can
what
be done, is
it
what I'm
can be
saying.
done. And I'm honestly like I was a defender of season 2 until that Luke Skywalker thing, right? I still think actually that's a pretty good season of what this type of show can be.
Sure.
Until you realize it's all just setting up spin-offs, right? Which
Yeah,
is the
which is
bad
that's where
mistake.
we're at with most of these shows, and
Yeah.
that's a real problem.
Yeah, the other problem is that as like the conceit of the Mandalorian, right? It's eventually getting back to the point, and now has gotten back to the point where it's going to be about retaking Mandalore and like reestablishing the Mandalorian culture. I know, I know.
I know, and it's the
It's-
worst. He should just be the last Mandalorian.
yes, but that's not the world we live in. I'm going to say this. I'm going to be positive for a second. I don't think that's a bad idea. You have set up all these different Mandalorian groups, right, throughout the show.
Mhm.
The show has stated that the one Pedro Pascal is from, the group he's from, is a cult.
Yeah,
It is a negative connotation that Bo-Katan from the Clone Wars and Rebels gives him, right? And she becomes the co-lead this season. And you know what? People were like, "Oh, whatever." Like, I actually liked that. I liked that idea, and I liked some of the execution. Once the ball gets rolling on like connecting all these warring groups of Mandalorians,
Mhm.
it stops being introspective about their differences. So by
yeah,
the time they do come, because spoiler alert, whatever, who gives a fuck? This was a bad season of television with the worst finale. Um, they don't like question anything. It's just like we're all Mandalorians, we all get along.
yeah.
There is
Right.
no sense of conflict in this show anymore that is not solved within 5 minutes of establishing that conflict.
That's
I
a
felt
hundred
like I
percent
was losing my
correct.
mind. It was so awful.
Yeah, Mandalorians. The culture. I've just it's almost poetic because I think the Mandalorian. I'm not even gonna call it Boba Fett. I think Boba Fett is just like the biggest thing wrong with like the mentality of the expanded universe stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why is Boba Fett cool?
It's got a cool helmet.
He looks fucking cool as shit, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's why Boba Fett's cool.
Yeah.
The more we learn about him, the less cool he becomes.
Yeah. He was
And
a cool henchman. That's what he
yeah,
was. That's fine.
he
That's all
looks
he needed
great.
to be.
Like, he just looks cool. You can have him stand next to Darth Vader and he looks cool, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't need more than that. You have him get in a fight with some guys. And it's kind of hysterical that Boba Fett is ultimately defeated by a blind Han Solo hitting his jetpack in the back.
People hated that. I think it's one of the best beats like in the franchise. It's so perfect for Han Solo the character.
It is fine, but it is also like a symbol of we thought this character was going to be more important than they ended up being, which is what happened. Like, that's just behind the scenes. It doesn't matter, though, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, ultimately doesn't matter. I'm fine with it. But since that character, we've learned everything about this guy twice now, because we've had two different versions with the original EU and now the new one, where actually he didn't die in the Sarlacc pit. He got out. So we've learned two versions. We've got two backstories of it. We've got an extra backstory with Jango Fett. And what is Jango Fett? Well, Boba Fett is a clone of Jango Fett. Canon, right?
Yeah.
But in actuality, Jango Fett is a clone of Boba Fett. It is literally just a way to have Boba Fett in the prequels, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then to expand from that, you have the clone troopers, who are all Boba Fett.
Mm-hmm.
So there's now an army of Boba Fetts. And then not only is there an army of Boba Fetts, but there is a culture of Boba Fetts. There's a planet of Boba Fetts. And it's like, now Boba Fett's not that cool. Like, we've learned too much. And then it's this is hard. I don't want to like downplay. It is hard to make a fake alien culture interesting, right?
Right.
It's actually a genuinely difficult thing to do. And it is one of those where if you don't explain it enough, it's generic, and if you over explain it, it's boring, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But the Mandalorian culture is so kind of lame and boring and uninteresting. And I joked at the start about how it's always been Jedi and Sith and all this stuff. Guess what? It's also been Mandalorians. Like, a big part of the Old Republic MMO was Mandalore, and like the new Mandalore, who's like the biggest, ultimate, most badass version of Boba Fett. Like, God, it's so silly, you know?
It's very silly, and I think the show thinks it's really interesting and cool. And
Yeah, that's the other thing. Star Wars isn't cool, you know? Like, it's fun, but it's not like here's
the thing. It's not Michael Mann.
It's not Michael Mann. It has an over sense of self-importance. But also, here's something that Michael Mann movies are cool, but there is also like a melodrama to it, you know? There's it's borderline silly, but like that's what's kind of fun about it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
At least in my opinion. That's how I feel.
I agree with that.
Yeah, like it's like literally the only other man on earth you can hold hands with is like your arch nemesis. Like it's like with like that music playing and that like you're posing for a picture that no one is taking. Like that to me is cinema. But there is this over sense of self-importance that I think it started with The Mandalorian, and I think it's spreading like a virus to all of the Star Wars stuff. And it just fundamentally doesn't understand what makes Star Wars actually fun, but it does validate a very core audience of Star Wars fans. And that to me, it's a net negative to the franchise. And I will bring this up even in stuff I like, that there's a bit of an over sense of self-importance.
Mm-hmm.
But that to me has been the biggest problem. And now when I say that, it's this problem we keep running into now where I go like, these type of movies should be fun, and everyone's idea of fun now is like Whedonisms in movies, you know, or the constant like your name's Dr. Octopus, bah, it's type shit, right?
Yeah.
And I don't mean that. That's not fun either. Like,
Yeah, I think it's cynical more than anything.
no, that's deep, deep cynicism. Like, you have to be earnest and fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is the two things Star Wars is most afraid to be right now. There's no earnestness to this. There's just a, like, no, this is fucking important.
Yeah.
And that's what really bugs me.
There is one episode of The Mandalorian this season that I did kind of like.
Mm.
And it's the one everyone else hated. It's with Jack Black and Lizzo.
Well, that one people hate because they hate Lizzo.
Yeah.
Because she played that, what was it? Fucking, what the fuck was it? Like Thomas Jefferson's pipe or some shit? It was so
Is that what that is? I don't know.
Do you remember when that happened? It's so stupid. Like, they brought her in and let her play it. And then people are like, it was like an insane way that we pretended for a week that what they weren't saying was a black person shouldn't touch this, which is what they were saying, but weren't saying, right?
Yeah.
Like, that was the subtext of what they were saying. And we had to pretend for like a week that wasn't what they were saying.
It's also really embarrassing that people were just like upset. It's a fun one-off episode where it's like, it's literally called Guns for Hire. I'm like, this is what the show should be. Like,
Yeah,
there's a little bit.
What it should be. Jack Black is 100% someone who should show up in Star Wars.
Yes.
Like, I got a job for you, Mandalorian. Like, skip it to do. Like,
No.
he's got like
it's
a
great.
band
They're
or something.
playing like these weird alien games, and she's like obsessed with Baby Yoda, Lizzo, and like there's kind of conspiracy with like the droids, and fucking Doc Brown's in it.
Yeah.
It's like it's so like weird, and it's like George Lucas probably got a boner if he saw this episode. Like, that's what I'm talking about here. You know what I mean? And other people were just like, no, not my Mandalorian. And I call out everyone who has said that because that's stupid, and you're making a mistake for saying that. Jon Favreau wrote Swingers back in 1996. I don't know what happened, but he has stopped giving a fuck.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he just has. Like, whatever. These are all first draft screenplays, right? Like, for television, and that's like, I get it. You know, you're putting stuff down on piece of paper. He should not be doing that. I stand by my decision, or my opinion, that he should be having a writer's room, because he just can't handle this anymore. I have more questions, though, than answers, because Rick Famuyiwa is now an executive producer on the show. Mm-hmm. He has written and directed, in my opinion, the best episodes of the series, along with Bryce Dallas Howard, prior to season 3. Now they're of the same quality, and I can't tell who's directing what anymore. Yeah. They all just feel monotonous and life-sucking.
Well, we're hitting the crunch right now, which I just think it's affecting everyone, and I don't think it's even... I can't even really blame Favreau. I think these things are being rushed out with less money and less time, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All for a streaming service, which is, we have just passed the streaming bubble imploding, right? Like,
yeah, like the writing's no longer on the wall. It's like we're all spouting it, and we're just kind of watching.
Disney's the only one that is acting like everything is fine. Like, every other one is making decisions every week that is like, oh, it's worse than we thought, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's actually... Netflix is killing their DVD by mail service in a desperate attempt to get more people to use their streaming service.
Yeah, when I saw that, that's when it really hit me. I was like, oh shit, Netflix might not be a thing in like 5 to 10 years.
It really could. Now, like, it could always bounce back. They could find the right thing to do. I don't know.
Yeah, but like, I don't think people understand how huge that decision is. Like, that's really fucking telling.
That was not an unprofitable sector of their company, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, they people like it. People want to use that service. It's just not making like a fucking like fortune, you know? And they're like, we need those resources elsewhere. And that's a very bad sign as a business, you know?
Yeah.
And to see Disney doubling down all of this stuff is like concerning, right? Yeah. And I think it's radiating out and hurting the product. I can't even really blame Favreau, you know?
No, I will not blame him for that. Like, this season looked really fucking cheap. You know what? I'm going to kind of not push back on that. Yeah. Like, it looks really bad this year, and it's not entirely this show's fault.
The stuff I will blame Favreau for is that I think he has a really shallow idea of what is a conflict that is actually interesting and how to resolve it, right? Which
you have no idea. I'm going to go into it.
which you brought up in the whole, like, we just got to work together as Mandalorians, right? Like, and vote for your local congressman. Like,
It is that,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. It's like neoliberal bullshit. And if there's anything that is absolutely dead in 2023, it's neoliberalism, right?
Uh-huh.
Like, it's over. Like, that's really over.
And you know
And
what? Oh, sure, you go
no,
first, because I'm gonna go on a thing. right
it's,
now.
well, I get why it doesn't happen. And I'm not saying our culture should reflect my values in any sort of way, you know?
Yeah, we
I
both
think,
like regressive shit in
well,
movies
I've
sometimes.
also just gotten to the point of being like, it's a fool's errand to even have those discussions, right?
hmm
Like, we just all lose our minds. We all point fingers at each other. And meanwhile, people who like fucking fund politicians who commit war crimes, like, make money hand over fist while we're arguing, right? Like,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
missing the forest for the trees type shit. But if Favreau were to really interrogate the Mandalorian, it would necessitate actual change to the dynamics that are happening on the show, right?
hmm
That it is we would have to get skeptical of it. And if there's one thing we've learned about Star Wars fans is that they really don't like that. That they really push back on anything disruptive like that. That they just want their characters to stand around and look cool and constantly be the problem. You know, it's like it's more women prison guards type shit. Like, it is the Mandalorians. There's nothing about the Mandalorians that is actually a problem. It's who has the most voting power within the Mandalorians, right?
hmm
It is not. There is nothing fundamentally wrong with the Jedi Order. It is who is in charge of the Jedi Order. Like, the Jedi Order should have worked. Luke was in charge, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, no, and we have to start really questioning those things. And not in a, again, I am not saying in a, like, I don't need these stories to be 100% aligned with my politics. I will talk about a show later that is more aligned with where my politics are that I have problems with, right? But they're kind of separate from what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It is not about reflecting what I want personally. It is just this unfortunate repeating of stories and imagery and characters and circumstances and arcs that is the Star Wars thing. Unfortunately, I'm in the minority and thinking those are wrong, but it is also what kept the original EU going for forever, and it is clearly what the majority of Star Wars fans want. They don't want these things to get more creative in some way. Um, but I'm at a point where I'm like, I don't want to see another fucking republic rise from the ashes of an empire, you know?
hmm
Like, shouldn't we be trying something different here? Shouldn't we, like, try to break the circle a little bit? Not even not in a, honestly, I'm stressing, not in a political sense, just in an engaging story sense, right?
Yeah, like why follow that narrative? Like, I'm not even gonna say we can't do that again. Like, I think, like, just politically speaking, the Star Wars universe will probably lean that way for the foreseeable future. But, like, we can do other stories in between that, or even while that's occurring, and not
And
make it the focus, and still have it be epic scale. You
yeah,
know?
and as they do this, they as they keep repeating these things, they are training the audience to expect those things. So
hmm
when a story maybe veers from that, it is considered a mistake as opposed to a different story, right?
Yeah.
It is, you can't kill Snoke in the second movie. He's supposed to be the villain in the third movie.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and
yeah.
people go like, they fucked up. They killed Snoke, as if like they got to the editing bay and were like, oh shit, we killed Snoke, like, as if they didn't know what they were doing. And it's like, that's not a mistake. It's a choice. You don't have to agree with it, but it's a choice, and you should ask why those choices are made.
hmm
And now Star Wars is being flattened in a way to make it so those changes just don't happen because they don't want to rock the boat too much.
Yeah.
And I can't 100% blame Favreau. I can blame Disney because this is what they've always wanted, because this is what major corporations want to do with culture. But I can't let like the fans off the hook. They 100% deserve the quality of shows they're getting. Like if they try to sit around and be like Star Wars, Disney's ruining Star Wars, they aren't wrong, but their hands also aren't clean as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Like,
And you know what the most frustrating thing is for me right now? And this is related to exactly what you were saying. It's that every once in a while, Favreau does have an idea or even a moment that's captured on screen where I'm like, that's a good idea. Let's get more into that, you know? And then like doesn't. There's a moment in the season 3 finale where like, you know, the epic cliffhanger leading into the finale is like, fuck, they're gonna lose Mandalore again. Like they're barely getting it back, whatever, right? Din Djarin's captured. Where's Baby Yoda? I don't know. The Bo-Katan has to like escape, and like the Mandalorians are hiding out in these caves that are filled with like nature and like the plant life of Mandalore that hasn't existed in hundreds of years. And this great moment where they all just take like a beat to recognize that like, oh hey, like life can come back to this planet. Like our home isn't gone forever. Like our home can be whatever we want it to be. Like we can plant new life here. Like that's the metaphor, right?
yeah.
It's right there. It's a nice moment. Not relevant to anything that happens the rest of the show, but
Yeah.
it's like right there. It's like that's the story. Right fucking
And
there.
the other problem is that like this is one of my problem with Book of Boba Fett too, which I liked more than most people, but you could tell they picked the ending before they started the season, right?
Yep.
And and I can't even say like you shouldn't do that. They have to, because by the time they are filming the third season, they're already building sets for the fourth season probably.
Yeah.
Like these are massive undertakings, and they don't want to spread them out because you have to get a certain number of things out there for shareholders to show that the numbers keep going up, because they're
No, you're
always
right.
going to go up.
But like furthermore, even like with all that too, the show The Mandalorian has given every nerd who's been saying this is the best Star Wars thing ever exactly what they wanted.
Mm.
And I won't say it's doing it very well, right? Favreau's not blameless here, but
Yeah.
it's giving people exactly what they wanted, and they're recognizing that it's not very good. They don't recognize
But they
that them
can't-
asking for that is wrong.
They
You know what I
can't
mean?
figure out that, yeah, they're like, they can't go. It's that, I mean, I bring this up a lot, but it is that thing, and I can't blame him for it. But I remember when I saw Watchmen, Zack Snyder's Watchmen in theaters, it was 100% what I wanted, right? Like, it was as close to a filmic adaptation of the source material as you could get in terms of 1-to-1. And getting it, I remember that feeling in the theater being like, oh, I actually don't want this, right?
Yeah.
And I can't even be like, I'm not blaming Zack Snyder. He did the exact instinct I would have done before the movie came out. Like, it took seeing it for me to realize it, you know? And but it's that thing of like, I don't know if Star Wars fans, and I'm lumping them all together. Star Wars is one of the most popular franchises on Earth. It's the third highest grossing multimedia franchise of all time. There's a lot of people that are there's a lot more people probably in our camp than we realize. But I think there are I think there are more, I don't want to say like casual, but there are certain fans that they're getting what they want. They aren't enjoying it, and they aren't getting introspective about it, and are either jumping to that's why people got so upset about the Lizzo and Jack Black thing, right? Like they need something to blame, and that's like a more like apparent. I mean, remember people were so upset about like those colorful bikes in the Book of Boba Fett.
No,
And
yeah.
it's like they're focusing on the wrong thing, and they're being geeked up by these fucking outrage merchants on YouTube, right? That have agendas and are using the lack of quality of these shows to push their agendas, being like, you know why the show sucks? And it's because of my sincere political beliefs, which are that I think diversity is a bad thing, which is what these people are doing. It's so telling that all the criticisms The Last Jedi got were criticisms made against The Force Awakens in terms of like the diversity thing, right? Like all those are made, but they didn't stick because on average, the majority of people like The Force Awakens, right? Say how you feel about it in retrospect, whatever, your opinion could have changed, but most people had a good time with The Force Awakens. The Last Jedi, people came out of it. Some people weren't hype about it, it's not wrong to not be hype about a Star Wars movie, right? But you log on to YouTube and you are primed to get sucked in by these people who don't really care about Star Wars, but do care about pushing their agendas, and they're going to use this Star Wars thing to push it. I mean, flat earthers make videos about why The Last Jedi sucked.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
You know
exactly.
what? I'm not surprised.
Yeah, because they know, and those videos do numbers because the algorithm feeds them. And that's where, like, I am slightly worried about how we talk about this stuff in 10 years. Because I see these weird things where people are just like, yeah, we all know the sequel trilogy sucked. But then, like, they don't really have an argument for it, right?
Hmm.
And then they usually fall back on stuff like, well, there's continuity errors during that big fight scene. And it's like, I'm not saying, like, that's not a mistake, right? Like, that's a whole
Yeah.
other discussion. But that's your fucking ace in the hole. Like, there's no real philosophical thing by it. And I think people now are just like, yeah, we all agree they suck, but they don't even know why we agree on that anymore. And it's I only see it getting worse for at least the foreseeable future. And I worry we're at a tipping point. I think we're hitting a certain a tipping point for Star Wars. That
I agree, but I think I'm more optimistic in the long run, if that makes sense. You know, like it's Star Wars, whatever. Like it's not real, but like I am optimistic about it because right now the snake's eating its own tail so vehemently, and like I've said, it's going to eat its own tail for a while, right? Like I've been very open about feeling that way, but the fact that no one is like universally praising or disliking anything anymore, except maybe Andor, which is pretty close to universal praise, right?
yeah,
Not
except by
quite, but
weirdos.
but like they're gonna burn out any semblance of goodwill, like at the Disney
Yeah,
Corporation,
but
and
they're
then
gonna.
Star Wars isn't going to be able to like sustain itself again, which is what we've always talked about too. Star Wars gets too big for whoever takes over it,
All I'm
right?
saying is that I would be really nervous right now if they were right now developing a new trilogy and Bob Iger was in charge of the Walt Disney Company.
We are gonna get to that.
I would
I
be
need
really
to.
nervous if those two things were specifically happening right now.
I want to get into that. I need to vent about how bad the finale was, just because this
But
is the only time I've talked about it. It felt like a baby wrote it. I'm
I
not
mean,
even joking. Like I've said, I didn't like the Mario Brothers movie at all. It's like it's baby food. It's bad baby food, right? Like that's me being kind. The Mandalorian season 3 finale was shockingly incompetent, and I'm not really sure why. But every 5 minutes, it was like, "Oh, Jin's captured. This is the epic cliffhanger from last time. Oh, he broke out of the capture. It's okay. Oh, Baby Yoda's here now, and they're helping each
yeah.
other. Okay. Oh, Bo-Katan and the Mandalorians are just gonna regroup, and then they're gonna retake Mandalore. And I was like, oh, all right. And then they're like, oh, and then the bad guy Moff Gideon, Giancarlo Esposito, the great Giancarlo Esposito, who said he didn't believe in cloning 2 episodes ago or whatever. Actually, he does have a secret clone army of himself. Oh my gosh, they got to destroy them. Oh, and then they confront him, and then he reveals that he was actually making clones so he could give them the force powers. And then they blew up though, so now he's angry about that, even though he said he didn't like cloning a couple episodes ago. And then the big explosion happens behind him, and then Baby Yoda saves them all, and then he's the bad guy's dead, and then all Mandalore is united. Oh, but also the dark saber broke. The bad guy broke the dark saber, and now it's not important anymore because Mandalore's united. And this wasn't a choice any participant made in the story. It's just something that happened in the middle of
Yeah.
the fight
Well,
scene.
it's the natural end result of when you're not writing character driven stories.
It was
It's
it was flabbergasting.
it
I
is
could
well,
not believe it.
there's no other way. Honestly, it is. I know where you're coming from, but there was no other way it was going to end.
No, no, no. I
Like,
agree with you. I completely agree with you. But it was just shocking to watch it play out. The
mm,
part that surprised me the most was the fact that most audiences seemed to reject it.
mm.
That was actually kind of nice to see. Now
Now,
that might sound very mean,
mm,
but a lot of people immediately responded to this as like maybe killing the show.
that's interesting. I didn't see that.
Yeah.
I have so much Star Wars stuff just muted now because I just like I can't do it anymore. You know,
Yeah,
I
probably for
talk,
the
and
best.
even then I talk about Star Wars too much. But I mean, how many fucking retrospectives do we bring up Star Wars bullshit? Like, it's
Yeah,
really embarrassing, frankly.
that's
But
fine.
uh, I just, I wonder if we're in a bubble, you know? Like
Maybe. I mean, yeah.
that's my big question lately, not just in terms of uh, Star Wars, but in all of nerd culture, because I can't tell. Like right now, in about 2 months, there's going to be a brand new Indiana Jones movie, right? Like
Actually, 1 month,
1 month. It comes out
I
in.
think.
It
Oh
comes
wait,
out.
no, no, no. It doesn't come out in May. No, it's premiering at Cannes. Sorry, that's why.
Okay.
Yeah, my
Well,
bad.
now they're doing that weird thing where it's like that's premiering at Cannes, and then fucking Flash premieres tomorrow at CinemaCon.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Which yeah,
Sure, whatever.
gonna get an A+ from CinemaCon or whatever the
Yeah.
fuck. Uh,
The location where they pump something in the atmosphere, so you'll like
yeah.
all the movies that
Well,
come
no,
out there.
it's they don't need to pump anything in the atmosphere. They just need to say we're all gonna make so much money. And they have to believe it. You can't have a guy come out at CinemaCon and say, "Hey, actually, here's a movie. We think it's going to lose you guys a shit ton of money." Like,
Yeah.
you have to dilute yourselves. And they have it in Vegas, so everyone's already fucking gambling and fucking drinking. So,
We're on top of the fucking world.
yeah, exactly. Vegas, which is like a mistake of a city in the middle of a fucking desert that was built to rip off people who built the Hoover Dam. Like, it's like an embarrassment. And it's like, yeah, fucking the line's always going up, baby. Like, so they're gonna love the Flash. But I mean, it is a thing of like, no one seems really hyped for Flash at all, right?
Yeah,
Like,
no real people.
no real people. Um, and Indiana Jones, you would think that would at least be like, it would at least generate some buzz because it's very much this is going to be the last Harrison Ford one, right? Like it's
Yeah.
over after this. And there's like I cannot tell if we've just moved on or if there really is no hype for it. Like,
Hmm.
and I don't know if you have because you're more in those circles than I am, and I don't know if I have a great look at everything.
Yeah.
Um, does that make sense?
It does. I don't think there's actually that much hype for Flash. I think Indy, when it gets closer to release, people will be like, "Oh, Harrison Ford," because people like
Now,
Harrison Ford.
now
That's what one will pick up.
the opposite of that is I could definitely feel the hype for Super Mario Brothers, right?
Yeah.
Like people were excited about that movie,
Hmm.
like adult people, and it like the quality of that movie is irrelevant. That's just that people were hyped is what is important, and I how do I say like I just wonder if that is a sign of the new arena we're moving into because maybe now it is the younger culture just isn't they don't want to see these things regurgitate like you know we already did Indiana Jones is back with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull like maybe we're just not looking for it anymore
Hmm.
maybe we just don't want it um and the younger culture it wasn't like Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was enough to get the new culture the younger people on board
Yeah.
that maybe it's that avenue is gone now and maybe it's a little too early for something like Star Wars to come back and maybe that now that we've done like all this like Justice League edits and re-edits and new versions and spin-offs and now like we're going into like oh that we're going to change the paradigm of the universe now actually we're starting over again and James Gunn's in charge and it just feels like people don't give a shit
Hmm.
like we're about to get the first Flash movie ever, right?
Yep.
Like that should be a big deal. And it's just no one gives a shit.
You know what else might have stolen its thunder is the Flash TV show, which was a huge
Yeah.
hit at one point and
Well,
still like is
but
the most popular show on the CW.
yeah, but also that should, in my opinion, make the Flash more popular. Like there should be people being like, I love the Flash. I can't wait for it to get the big movie treatment, right?
Yeah.
And that could just the lack of that hype could just speak to the movies like diminishing in terms of being the apex of culture, right? Like people might just be comfortable with a TV show,
Hmm.
but to me, there's a built-in audience for this now, right?
Yeah.
And there's just nothing.
Okay, I see that.
And I mean, but like we're also talking about this is a company that took fucking until what was it, 20 fucking 17 to get a Wonder Woman movie out there.
Yeah, I mean that is embarrassing.
That's how long it took to get a fucking Wonder Woman movie made. And this isn't a criticism. I'm not like blaming Zack Snyder. It's not his fault, but it is a little fucked up that when we finally get someone like Wonder Woman, who I think is an important cultural character, frankly,
Hmm.
that she has to have this anchor of being tied to this greater universe. So she's not even really the star of the thing. The universe is the star,
Yeah. And
And
I think we're on the precipice of these universes ending. Not
yeah,
even out of like story obligation or anything like that. God no. But like I think people just burnt out. I mean, there's the Marvel stuff. People maybe disagree, but I've said it's happening, and
yeah.
Guardians 3 doesn't look like it's gonna do that well, and that's a franchise that people like normal people
Yeah,
like. People don't care about Ant-Man, which is why the last one bombed, but like
and
these things
Guardians
are not built to last.
and Guardians is being billed as like this is the end of it, and it still doesn't even feel like people give a shit,
Yeah, it's like I'm the one. I'm like, no, this is the one I like, guys. And then everyone's like, yeah, whatever, go back to bed, Grandpa. I'm
Yeah,
like, which is fine, whatever. I'm not defending the
but
sanctity of this. I'm just saying.
I think part of it is just the overloading of the Disney Plus shit. I think that is what is like kind of speeding this up.
I completely agree. And this kind of goes back to I almost said Tucker Carlson because that's on the brain.
Yeah, Tucker Carlson got fired today. Or
Yeah,
whatever.
this is that day we're recording.
We don't know what the full story is yet. Like, it's just kind of like suddenly he's off the air. So we're all kind of happy, but we're also like, wait, what? Like,
Yeah, what could have caused that? But
yeah, we don't know. Like, he could be announcing he's running for president. Like,
I mean, yeah,
that is a real thing people have discussed.
yeah. At this
So,
exact moment in time, I think you and I are just taking the win and running with it, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's
But I meant to bring up Bob Iger,
mhm.
who you brought up, who when he came back after the other Bob stepped in,
Mhm.
for like a year and got the boot really
How
fast,
are there
right?
literally just like six guys named Bob who run like half of Hollywood?
You know what? It makes a lot of sense.
How is it just that? Like,
Oh, they were cloned by Moff Gideon, and then they
yeah,
were revealed to be
you
force
can't get like a
sensitive,
Lance in there or somewhere. Like,
or like an Andrew.
yeah, like,
But
like
okay, when Bob Iger came back in, everyone was like, "Oh, he's gonna clean house and shit and get stuff back on track." Every problem the Walt Disney Corporation is facing right now, along with every other corporation in Hollywood, and maybe even just corporations across the globe, is a byproduct of his decision making over the course of the last
yeah, it's
decade.
all the stuff that didn't work was in production while he was still in
Yeah,
charge.
the
Like,
guy who everyone blamed for all the other problems, he did fuck up. Like I think he price hiked on like the theme parks and stuff like that. Like he's done shit that didn't
well,
work in the
there's
short term,
also
but
like the
like
weird, like Disney has come out being because Disney made that big stink of like they fired what's her name for being transphobic, right?
yeah,
They've gone more in on social issues, and then they made that big announcement that they're no longer going to give any money to Republicans. Um, I think just in the state of Florida, but like that was their big thing
yeah,
after the "Don't Say Gay" bill, and now they're like at war with the state of Florida. And there's even like genuine discussions that Disney might leave Florida,
yeah,
like,
which is fucking crazy.
which
It's
is
very much a let them fight situation.
yeah. No, I'm not picking sides, but I'm just saying
Yeah,
like that. And I think a lot of that got laid at that dude's feet. That like he didn't handle those situations well.
yeah,
And I don't even know. I don't know what the fuck is driving that. I think part of it is that like Disney has that weird thing where they rely on the gay community in a lot of ways.
yeah.
Like they've always had like a weird in with them because they have the unofficial gay days at Disney World and Disneyland. Did you know about those?
No, I did not.
Yeah,
But
it's like a
bare
day.
minimum.
They're unofficial. Like it's not like Disney comes out and it's like gay, but there is a day that usually it's like same sex couples all go to the park and they have a day there. It's the gay day at Disney World, and I can't remember the date, but it happens, and I think they know that block like buys a lot of their shit, so they can't piss them off, and they're not doing it for altruistic reasons, I guess is what I'm saying,
Hmm.
but it's in this weird time where right now you have corporations backpedaling on like gay rights stuff or like being afraid to put their toe in the water, and Disney kind of went all in. That's not like I'm not like saying that's a pro to them, but I think that the negative publicity that is swirled around that at the same time as them hitting this kind of like flop era,
Mm-hmm.
that I think it looks a certain way to people that things were changed uh, recently, and it must be that guy's fault. And I don't even know. It sounds like he wasn't a great, but also like Bob Iger couldn't run the theme parks either. Like, there's a very little like attempt to actually run the theme parks well because they don't make a lion's share of the money, right?
Yeah, but we got to remember he was also like the platonic ideal of like a capitalist icon because he
Yeah,
just what was his business plan? It was to buy the really profitable
yeah.
stuff.
Well,
That
and
was
I
it.
mean, for what it was, for this is I'm not. I feel like I'm going to come across like defending Bob Iger, but I'm not. Like, it made a lot of his decisions made sense, right?
Yeah, they
They
make business sense, and we have discussed. I know you're not defending him, but it's like, just because something makes business sense doesn't mean it's like a moral or ethical
yeah,
good. Very often, I would say about 99% of the time, it is the opposite of morally good.
yeah. I mean,
Like,
he got Marvel. Like, that's a big deal that happened. And he saw that before a lot of other people saw that that's where things were going.
mhm.
And like it made business sense. And I give him credit. He tried for like 2 years to make an in-house version of the Marvel shit, right? Like they were like, we have to expand into action movies, we have to target boy audiences and shit like that. They tried, they all flopped, and then he just went like, okay, we're just gonna buy some famous IPs.
Yeah, you're
And
right. He
it's
did genuinely
it's
try that for a
been
minute.
a net negative for our culture, but it made sense. But I just you can't do it forever, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is why I also said he's like the platonic ideal of that
Bob
like
Iger's been
capitalist
coming up a
vision.
lot on this show, like even when we're not discussing Star Wars.
Yeah, that kind of sucks. But like, he's also the
Also, the dude
platonic
that canceled
ideal of
Twin
the.
Peaks initially,
Yeah,
so
so fuck him. But
like Billy
also
origin story.
like the ideal version of capitalism in the last decade is like specifically short-term success, zero long-term gain.
Infinite growth, too big to fail.
Yeah,
Like
that is
that's been the
him.
thing. And guess what? It's all failing right now. So
Yep.
buckle the fuck up, people. uh,
Uh,
Makes a lot of what's happening in the Star Wars universe look very trivial, ultimately.
it
But
does, it does. But that's what we're here to talk about today. So fuck it, whatever.
mm,
Um, and that's basically the Mandalorian is a bust.
mm.
I will say
Now,
the premise for next season, which is what the show ends on, instead of wrapping up anything and like spending time with any single thought for more than a couple minutes or seconds. The Mandalorian and Baby Yoda team up with the new Republic agent guy. I forget the actor's name. I like him. He's gonna be Uncle Iroh in the live action Last Airbender show. He's a good actor.
all right.
Well, he's gonna, instead of like being a lone gunslinger, he's now he's gonna go live on the planet where fucking Apollo Creed runs, right? And he's gonna go work
What
for the New
happened to this
Republic.
show while I wasn't paying attention?
I
Anyway,
don't know. I forget the Apollo's name. Fucking what's that actor's
it's
name?
Apollo Creed. Who gives a fuck?
Okay, yeah. Well,
It's
the
Carl Weathers,
Mandalorian.
man. Carl
Thank you, Carl
Weathers.
Weathers. He's gonna go live on the planet with Carl Weathers and Baby Yoda. They own a
Action
farmhouse.
Jackson, which is a name
Action,
that
yeah, there
doesn't,
you go.
which is a name that doesn't really make any sense. But hey,
Fuck it. And he's the
Chubbs from fucking
Mandalorian.
Happy Gilmore.
Yeah, the
Sorry.
rise of Chubbs. But the Mandalorian is going to work for the New Republic to hunt down like agents who have fled from like the Republic, like war crimes and stuff like that.
Oh, so
For
it's
like
finally gonna
imperial
be
stuff.
about bounty hunting.
Yeah, and
The
it's
show
like, hey,
starring a
that.
bounty hunter.
Yeah, it's like that's a good idea. I have no confidence in them executing that in
You know
any
what?
like
I will say
successful
this.
capacity.
Now the problem is because of the nature of way shows are made now, they're already making season 4 before they get the feedback to season 3, right?
Yeah.
So they've already started building a show in the mold of where season 3 ended, and maybe it's not working.
Hmm.
So but Favreau has been at weird points like that in his career before, where he has realized he's making a mistake and kind of like goes like, let's get back to basics a little bit.
Uh huh.
Like he has the run of Iron Man. He kind of hated doing Iron Man 2, right?
Yeah, so he doesn't do the Avengers because
Yeah,
of that. I think people
yeah, he
forget
doesn't
he
do the
was
Avengers.
going
He
to do
does
Avengers.
Cowboys and Aliens, which is like kind of a passion project, but doesn't work, you know.
Hmm.
And then he kind of swings back to doing something like Chef, which is like a really like low budget kind of small affair movie, you know.
Yeah.
And it's a movie where it's about how sexy he is, and he has sex with Scarlett Johansson. But
Yeah.
it's also like a nice little movie, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And after that he does Jungle Book, which I still like the Jungle Book movie he did.
I do too.
Like I think that's a pretty decent movie. And then he does Lion King, which is a disaster. But he seems to be able to like kind of reset himself when he needs to, you know?
Hmm.
And maybe he could do that if uh if given the chance, and if there's been enough, if he maybe he knew season 3 didn't end the way he wanted it to. Like that's why there's such this drastic tone shift in it, right? Of just we're forget about the Mandalorian shit. You're going bounty hunting now, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe he saw it coming before it even happened. I'm just being slightly optimistic about
No,
it,
no.
right?
You might be right. I thought about that too. I was like, did he know that this was getting too big for its britches, and he couldn't keep up with it anymore,
Yeah.
and he had to strip it all down and just leave that stuff behind for a little bit.
I mean, we've all been there writing. I mean,
Yeah.
that's famously Stephen King when he was writing The Stand, right?
Hmm.
You know the story?
No, but tell me
So
anyways.
Stephen King, famously a guy who never has writer's block, had writer's block while working on The Stand, which was like this opus, and he's like, I'm at this middle point. I have all these characters set up. I have too many goddamn characters. I don't know what happens next, right?
Hmm.
It's like I don't know where to do it, and he was trying to figure it out, and then he basically came to the conclusion for a lot of thematic reasons, but that's not worth getting into. But he basically decided like he's going to set off a bomb in like the middle of the story, and it's going to kill off half the characters, right? And it was basically like a weird reset to like refocus what was going on, and it
Hmm.
worked out. Like that's what makes that it really helped the latter half of that story. Now, famously, in Stephen King fashion, third act troubles, but it did help for what it was. Um, but who knows? I think the Mandalorian kind of needs that, where like all the Mandalorians need to like die on the way back to their home planet. You know?
Yeah, they need to blow up the home planet.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
home planet needs to be one of the ones that blows up in Force Awakens.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
And I will say, I think the final problem with the show, and I've not been a hater of this person. I've actually kind of defended them, but Dave Filoni basically is not that involved because he's doing the Ahsoka show that
Mhm.
comes out later this year, and I think that definitely has been a detriment
Well,
to Favreau's writing capabilities.
it's everything is too spread out. Like,
Yep.
it's a big mistake they're all making.
Yeah.
Like, it's the
It should all
same
be the
thing.
same show.
Yeah.
It should all be one show.
It really should have been. It should have been like, here's a 10-episode miniseries about Star Wars, right?
Hmm.
Like 10 2-hour episodes. Like, they should have worked on that for like fucking 3 years and then just dumped all that at once, you know?
I think you could even do like 15-episode runs and just be
Sure,
like,
why not? But I'm just saying, like, it should have just been one big thing as opposed to like these dozens of little satellite shows, you know?
yeah.
And I think we've said everything worth saying about the Mandalorian,
Yeah, we can move on now.
um, which is a thing.
Yeah.
This is what came up next. I've opened a bunch of tabs of like other shows and
Uh-huh.
shit, but a show didn't pop up. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order popped up instead.
Oh, yay! Which I have not played, but seems to be pretty good, apparently.
Um, I've heard mixed things.
Okay.
I'll say this: I was given a free copy of it when I bought my new PC back in 2019,
Hmm.
and I haven't played it because
I've just
it looked like a story on rails type thing.
it does, and that's the problem with a lot of AAA games right now. It's not a Star Wars related problem. That one is at the behest of another industry's problems. So.
Also, just no offense, but like the guy, I don't like the look of the guy. He looks. I just.
You can't help how he looks.
I don't look at that face. That's just not. I don't want to be that guy.
Oh, okay. We're going back to hating gingers. Is that what we're doing?
It's not even the hair. Like I'm fine with the hair. It's like the weird face.
It's his face.
I don't mean to be offensive, but it's this weird creeps looking face.
Oh my
Like,
god, it's a normal face. I think he's Irish. Yeah, his name's Cameron Monaghan. That's definitely
I'm sure
Irish.
you'll find it.
So
It's not even like him. If I saw him in real life, I'd be like, hey man, whatever. Like it's the like weird uncanniness of like him being a digital character. You know, they're getting too realistic looking.
oh,
Like
that yeah, I do hate that. I really do.
and but also the shape of the dude's face doesn't help.
Okay,
But
well, do you remember that like debacle with the Insomniac Spider-Man game when they had to replace the actor's face when they upscaled to the PS5 version?
oh no, I did not know that.
Okay, so it was something with like the animation rigging, and the guy's face wasn't like it wasn't working anymore, so they replaced it with another actor's face or the original voice actor's face. I forget.
Mhm.
But they made him look more like boyish and young, and like it's like an early 20s age Peter Parker in that game, so it's like normal, right? And people were like rioting, and the voice actor was like, "Oh, sorry guys, it's me, it's my fault. My face wasn't like working with the computer or whatever." Like he came out and made a statement to be like, "No, no, no, don't be upset for me. Like it's normal, it's fine." And people were like, "There's a war going on about whether or not people prefer the old face or the new face," and it's like,
God, that's strange.
it's
What a
really funny.
strange fucking world we live in,
We
man.
live in an incredibly strange world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't like the look of. I mean, it's not. I don't even know if it's the face. It's just the like. It's got the weird like bad boy vibe, but like also not like a bad boy vibe. You know what I'm saying? I guess because when you play the game, you're supposed to pick whether or not you become a good person or a bad person.
Oh, it's one of
I'm
those.
assuming that's part of it, but I don't even know. That could be completely false. Like, but he has to look like someone who could go either way, right?
Right.
So instead, he looks like no one.
Well,
Apparently, Forrest Whitaker is back in the game as Saw Gerrera.
oh, that's fantastic.
Uh,
More
but-
Forrest Whitaker, the better, in my
and
opinion.
Ben Burt is a voice of a droid in it, so that's
Perfect.
interesting.
Yeah.
Um, but uh,
Uh,
has
but
Stephen Root been on any of the Star Wars things?
no, but he should be. But I'll tell you right now, the thing about the Star Wars Jedi series of video games, which I guess is going to be a trilogy. I just looked that up right
Yeah,
now.
the new next one comes out literally this week that we're recording.
Yeah, and then I guess they're hyping up one last one, which is like,
Yeah.
okay, trilogies, great, no problem with that. It is again set during the era that we've already talked about being exhausted by.
Yeah,
So
and guess what? More Jedi.
yeah,
Now the like, I get it. There's always got to be a few other running around, right? Like just
yeah.
for narrative necessity. But goddamn, man, there are two. They're at the tipping point where there are too many Jedi running around, and now what happened at the end of Revenge of the Sith is like losing its emotional punch, right?
Yeah,
Like,
and you don't even like that movie.
yeah, but it's important narratively. I'll say this: someone at Lucasfilm is at least doing the smart thing of not bringing the Sith back. You know,
Yeah.
like they're at least being smart about that
Mm-hmm.
because it is very important that when Darth Vader kills the Emperor, it does bring an end to the Sith. Like that is specifically a thing he's meant to do. You know,
Yeah.
I'm glad someone there is at least minding the store. You know.
Mm-hmm.
But there's too many Jedi, man. There's too many Jedi running around.
Well, to go on to Ahsoka, another show that hasn't come out yet, really quick, and I only want to touch on it briefly because
Yeah. I think
we don't know.
I don't have a ton to say about all of these things.
Yeah.
One thing I will say about the game, I think the reason why there's a trilogy and why like this is the model now, is I think the story is most of these games, these AAA games, like don't actually make money.
Oh.
But they get funding from the consoles they're going to be on because like it helps ship units, you know,
Yeah.
and which units themselves which are sold at a loss, but the subscription passes and then being in your living room is such an important part of the business models that they have, right? Like
Uh huh.
that's really what it comes down to. Because I think it's the thing of like. I've heard people say that some of the FromSoft games like might not really make money, like that they maybe break even, but they aren't like huge money makers. But like the people publishing them don't care because they move systems. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's part of it. So like I think they built in like this is the amount of money that was set aside for these things, and so we're going to do 3, and that's going to be it. And then they don't need to make a shit ton of money anymore because games are just so fucking expensive to make nowadays.
Yeah.
Because they're chasing these like insane graphics, which no one really wants. But I mean, I was fine with the PS2 era.
So was I.
And
I don't need things to look photorealistic.
yeah,
That's
are
not
we,
really
are
what
we
I go to games for.
are we ever gonna break that? Like,
It'll have to be. Or if we don't break it, there will be people trying other things.
yeah, I mean, I just want to get like everything should be stylized at this point.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I love the look of the Lego Star Wars games more than this, right? Like, those have more of a they feel more Star Wars than this thing, which looks too real, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it just throws me off a little bit, and but I could just be an old man about it. I'm just being like old man yells at clouds about things.
Okay, but like to be another old man who's yelling at clouds. Well, not even yelling, like because I actually I'm kind of looking forward to the Ahsoka series with the major caveat that like a character I love, Ahsoka Tano, also kind of raises more problems by her continued existence in the Star
Yeah,
Wars universe,
I mean you could
unfortunately.
make that work, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm fine with
She's also the OG survivor. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
It's like them
exactly.
adding all these other ones later. It's like wait.
Yeah.
You
And then it's
know?
like, well, Luke Skywalker didn't actually found a new Jedi Order. He just found a bunch of Jedi, like,
Yeah.
which is very different, right?
It's different, but it's also not to be this type of fan, but it's like it also does kind of retroactively make sense that okay, you just tried to pick up where they left off, that didn't work. That explains that.
Yeah.
If you have to reconcile with that, that's how I reconcile with it,
But
right?
to me, I kind of get it, and there's a way to make it work. And I always thought this is just me though, but like this is such a fantasy thing of like when you tell the story is in a universe where the magic of it is winding down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's Lord of the Rings, that
Yeah.
all the really cool magical shit, the Silmarillion happened a long time ago. Like that battle's already done, and now as things go on, the world is becoming slightly less magical as it moves into a modern era, right?
Right.
And so like that's why, when Obi-Wan shows up, he's like, and I'm like one of the last Jedi. It's like Jedi at one point there were millions of them, but now it's just a few people. And I think even the prequels, like the number of Jedi in the prequels are supposed to be like really small considering everything, but even then they keep growing with every new fucking adventure. So
Mm.
uh I always wanted like my whole like headcanon is that when Luke defeated the Emperor, that like oh fucking Yoda gives that whole speech about like how life makes the Force grow and everything like that, right? That
Mm-hmm.
like it's also and the Emperor stands in direct opposition to that and has thrown the whole universe out of balance. So it won't be until the universe is put, the galaxy, I mean, more specifically, it won't be until the galaxy is put more back into balance for there to be more Jedi to come around, right? Like that there's
Right.
going to be a distinct lack of them until that happens. And that's why like Luke would have spent for in my opinion, nerds, Luke would not have spent the time between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens establishing a new Jedi Order. He would have spent that time trying to repair the damage that the Emperor did to the galaxy, right?
Mm-hmm.
With the hope that that would lead to a new generation of Force users. And I think that's why he's more comfortable being like, let the Jedi end. There will be a new generation, but we have to let this Jedi shit burn itself out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's how I think he would get there in Last Jedi. And that's like fan theory bullshit, right? It's not really a thing.
Yeah.
But again, Star Wars has voted to go a completely different way with it, and they just got like, well, there's just Jedi around, and then Luke Skywalker founds a new Jedi Order, and I just don't think that's a very interesting story. That it's just like you're just founding Hogwarts, like Hogwarts for Jedi. I don't want the Jedi Order to turn into Hogwarts, man. Like Luke Skywalker shows up at your door and goes like, "Oh hey, you're a Force user." If he did do that, it should be like Legend of Korra, where Korra they're going around being like, "Hey, you're an Airbender, come live in the temple," and they're like, "Well, no, I have a life." Like there should be the galaxy itself should be rejected. that should be the story. But hey,
Hey, maybe it will be because I
maybe
mean, like, we haven't even talked about Andor yet, but this is a natural segue, so I'm just going to bring it up.
yeah.
The next Rey Star Wars movie, which will be a sequel to the sequel trilogy,
Mm,
it's going to be quote unquote about her establishing the Jedi Order,
mm,
that could mean anything. Your boy Damon Lindelof is no longer on it,
yeah.
so I don't know how you feel about. We haven't really
I mean,
talked about
I
that
don't think
since
Damon
then.
Lindelof could have written a good Star Wars story, but it's concerning that like he was announced and then thrown off it that quickly. And it does reek of who was the original writer of Force Awakens?
Oh
The
my God,
the Little Miss Sunshine guy. Um,
he wrote Toy Story 3, didn't he?
yeah,
Oh fuck, I can't
Michael
remember.
Arndt.
Thank you. Yes.
Michael Arndt, and he wrote the original script, and apparently he's writing the next Hunger Games movie. Um,
Whoa, that's
yeah,
weird.
that is weird. He's apparently a really prickly customer too. By the way,
Okay.
he I think famous. He was fired off of Little Miss Sunshine and then like rehired like during production. Is one of those
Sorry,
stories.
I
Yeah,
didn't know that.
yeah, yeah. Um, one of the stories about that is uh he went to Kathleen Kennedy and was like, "Hey, I need another year to write this," and she said no.
I
And
remember that.
yeah, and then he got kicked off, and then that's when they bring in Kasdan and then Abrams to kind of whip what was there into shape, right?
Hmm.
And I think they did an admirable job. But that's also famously a movie where this thing no one wants to really say is that Harrison Ford breaking his leg in the middle of filming is kind of what saved that movie because they
Yeah.
kind of slowed down for a few weeks and then they got to rework the script into something a little more manageable.
Yeah, which is how Abrams has worked and can work for like action movies that he's really
Yeah.
good at, you
Well,
know?
it's not even Abrams. It's just it speaks to the problem that Hollywood has right now, which is they aren't giving these people enough fucking time.
Yeah.
Like
Which
it's
is the
short.
problem with Rise of Skywalker. That's
Yeah,
why Abrams was brought back because they were insistent on making that 2019 release
they
date
had to make that release date. Like they had to
because
do it. And
Iger wanted those $4 billion hits under his belt before he
yeah,
left in 2020. And you mentioned it earlier, but it's the same thing that's happening right now, which is why, as much as I'm kind of into this idea, I don't know the director. I want to mention the director of the new fucking Star Wars. Hang on, I just had it.
yeah.
I'm looking at all this. I have all these tabs open.
Well, isn't she?
Charmin. Sorry, I'll say her name really quick. Her name is Charmin Obaid Chinoy. I
Yeah.
don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm so sorry. She directed on the Miss Marvel series. She directed 2 episodes. I haven't seen that yet. She's done a lot of documentaries. She's done feature films that I have not seen any of. I'm very curious about it now.
Hmm.
I'm curious as to how or why she got this job,
Yeah.
and I'm not criticizing her at all
It is a
because
well.
it is just like, well, this is how they've hired people onto these movies for the last couple of years, and nothing's changed,
She
which is
has
a
a
question mark, right?
shockingly long Wikipedia page
She does,
for
which
someone
means she's been busy. She's been
yeah.
in the business. She
And I'm
knows
not.
what she's doing at the very least.
Yeah, this isn't like I just honestly like this is my own ignorance, but I had not heard of her until that announcement.
I hadn't either, and like I'm not being critical of her, and like I'm sure plenty of people are going to be critical of
Looks
her
like she's done
because
like
she's a woman
three.
of color.
She's done like three like Pakistani animated films that I've never heard of.
You know what's weird? Hearing that her background is in animation makes me more excited.
No, that I agree. It's that thing of like Kathleen Kennedy is like will pick interesting people. Like honestly, I would not have thought Ryan Johnson for Last Jedi before Last Jedi, right?
Yeah.
And fans obviously don't think that worked out, but I'm like that was actually a really inspired choice. But and I am yes, like that's an interesting choice. And there was that like weird pressure that like I don't know if they really had it, but they made like such a stink of like if we're gonna do another Star Wars movie, we're gonna have a woman direct it, right? Like
Yeah.
that's been something they've been talking about. So like that's maybe I feel like fans are gonna like attack this woman for that reason, you know? Oh, it looks like her work highlights inequality for women. That will make anyone weird in a few years when this movie starts to come out.
Yeah, it's like, see, like the more I'm learning about her, I'm like, okay, she's like an interesting choice. I don't
Yeah,
know, like, look, I could watch her stuff and be like, oh, maybe she's not very good. Maybe I don't vibe with her work. There's plenty of people who I go to bat for, and then I see what they've done, and it's like, you know what, didn't really work out. Like,
Yeah,
I'm just gonna throw a movie out there that I caught up with. Cocaine Bear. I
yeah.
think Elizabeth Banks is an incredible actress. I don't really think she's got it as a director. Now, I don't want her to like burn her career down or anything like that, like some people. But not
It's a bit
really my
weird, but yeah,
jam.
yeah. Like Cocaine Bear, not like a great movie, but
Yeah,
um,
honestly, a little disappointing.
yeah,
I wanted it
it's
to work for
well,
me.
it's that thing of, and this is one thing where I'm like, I don't think I'm not even going to write off Elizabeth Banks entirely. One of the frustrating things about that movie is there are flashes of good ideas in it,
Hmm.
and when that happens and the movie goes back to like the safe spot it was in, it can be a little frustrating.
Yeah,
Um, but no, like it's an interesting choice. I just don't know. And the other thing is that like, and this is nothing to do with whoever, but like you got to remember that these movies are like being in charge of like an army basically, and you
yeah.
hope that if you pick someone that they're not gonna like, even like great filmmakers can be overwhelmed by that stuff, you know.
Hmm.
And you just hope that that doesn't happen here. But the real thing I am hoping for, is that they're not rushing whatever's coming next. You know,
I
that
hope so too.
that is what I'm really really hoping for. That they have learned that that is the big mistake they've been making. And unfortunately, the weird like Lindelof is writing it and then isn't writing it happening really quickly doesn't point in a great direction for that issue, in my opinion.
I agree with that because it was basically started to be produced on his pitch.
Yeah.
And you have negative feelings about that. I have positive feelings about that. But the fact that it's like, okay, this is the dude who started this project basically and is no longer involved. It's like, wait. Let me. I'm raising the finger. Like,
Yeah,
what does that
it's
mean? you know?
now, and like it could just be something where like maybe that decision was made way earlier and like the announcements just got fucked up, right?
Yeah, and,
Like,
and I'll be honest. I have heard that that's the case, but he was on it from the start and did work on it. Like
and it's just
he
something where
did
like maybe,
significant work on it.
maybe he gave it a great skeleton and then they just hit a wall where they disagreed on where to go with it, right? Which is like totally, that happens all the time in Hollywood, you know?
Hmm.
It could 100% be that. I just hope it is not Lindelof said, "Hey, I need more time," and then not getting it, which honestly they should not roll camera on a single Star Wars thing until they have a solid script.
Yeah.
Like they need to have that ready to go.
Now, do you know who took over writing duties for him? Because I do.
No, I do not.
Okay. Stephen Knight. Do you know who that is?
Is that the fucking Leica guy?
No. Stephen Knight is the writer of. I'm gonna run down the entire IMDb list. You ready?
Is it gonna make me want to blow my brains out?
I don't know actually.
All right.
A movie called Gypsy Woman, Dirty Pretty Things, Amazing Grace, Eastern Promises. Yes, that one.
Mm.
Hummingbird, which he also directed. I've not heard of this movie. It stars Jason Statham. Closed Circuit, wrote and directed Locke, the Tom Hardy car movie.
I like that movie.
I did too. Something called The 100-Foot Journey, Seventh Son, but that movie has a lot of like that movie got like fucked, I guess.
Yeah, but that's also a movie where you can tell it got fucked with. So,
Yeah.
there's a couple big ones. I just looked this guy up.
Yep.
There's a couple big ones that
Let
are.
me. I'll do it really fast.
Oh, Charlie, like.
Okay. Pawn Sacrifice, Burnt, Allied, Woman Walks Ahead, November Criminals, The Girl in the Spider's Web, Serenity, which he also directed,
Yeah.
Locked Down, and Spencer, which I actually loved.
People
So,
love Spencer. There's great movies here, but there's also but also the movies that are bad. I'll give him this. A lot of the movies that are bad are like someone else's fault. It seems like.
except for Serenity,
Well,
but
Serenity's a weird, dumb guy, smart film.
yeah,
You know
like
what I'm
that's
saying?
the thing I like about this guy. Whereas like Lindelof, I actually like. I have the utmost faith in him. This
Hmm.
guy, even if I don't like the things he's
Also, I
done,
just gotta
he's
say,
like he's a dude taking swings.
yeah, and I gotta say, what you really should have pitched was it's being written by a guy named Stephen Knight. He's 64 years old. In this
Yeah.
weird obsessive era where it's like we got to get these young guys who like worship at the feet of the 80s. Like, I'm glad to hear that, like, oh, we're getting like a steady old hand working on this thing.
And
Like,
you know what it honestly probably is too?
hmm,
This dude probably just can work in the industry at
yeah,
like at a reasonable pace versus people who are thrown into the machine. I'm not blaming like people nowadays I think are blaming like, oh, people don't know how to make movies anymore. And it's like I think that's true on the business side of things. I think creatives just aren't allowed to grow
they
in
aren't
this
given the
the way
time
that
or resources to do what needs to be done, and now they're just
yeah.
desperately trying to move ahead without them.
Yeah.
They're trying to make things you just can't do without some stuff, but
Yeah, yeah, and that's a whole other criticism. I don't hate the Stephen Knight Star Wars
no,
idea.
I don't hate that either.
Yeah.
That's Stephen Knight. That's interesting. I'm not like over the moon about it, but it is like I like the idea that there's like a workhorse writer behind it. You know?
Yeah, yeah, and you know what? I am gonna try to track down some of Charmin Obaidjanoi's work because I
I
mean it's
would
Star
not.
Wars. I want to see what she's done before.
I'm not gonna check out Miss Marvel because I don't think anyone really shines on any of these Disney Plus shows in terms of directing. They do an admirable job at best,
Yeah.
in my humble opinion.
Although I have to say I did see clips from the pilot of Miss Marvel from my boys from Bad Boys for Life.
Yeah,
There's there's some fucking character in that.
the pilots are always good. The pilots are always good.
That's not true. I did check out the pilot for Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
No, it was a good pilot for Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Was it?
Yeah, it is. It's but like not like I'm not again when I say good, I'm not saying like fucking the like fucking Manchurian Candidate. Like I'm just
Okay.
saying like it's admirable, but then they run out of steam about as quickly as humanly possible. So, um, and they get by introducing people from the movies again.
Yeah.
If I have to watch that trailer for She-Hulk one more fucking time where the Abomination is in it before a YouTube video, I'm gonna fucking scream. I'll be in public and I'm just gonna start yelling coherently.
You're gonna become a deadite. You start like.
Exactly. It's gonna be a video of me, and it's like, this is why we need to lock mentally ill people up. Someone's gonna use that as their like some Republican's gonna use me freaking out in public as their campaign video. So I apologize for the troubles I'm about to wrought, but I can't do that anymore. Anyway, Ahsoka, Thrawn is gonna be on it because let's do more of him, I guess. And Hayden Christensen apparently. I'm assuming that's like flashback shit.
Oh yeah, yeah, I guess so. I don't hate that idea. I honestly don't hate any of the stuff I've heard about Ahsoka.
Wait, when is Ahsoka
I just wish
set?
it was a cartoon. Sorry.
When is Ahsoka? Yeah. Well, all honestly, I guess there's one, and I think you know which one I mean. But like of the shows made, I think there's only one I would rather stay live action, and the rest I'd rather see animated. You know,
I think we're gonna agree on that choice. By the way,
yeah.
It's very clear which one. Take a second to fucking think about the good show that's aired. Yeah. It's that one. Sorry.
I'm a little upset. So like, when is Ahsoka set? Following the fall of the Empire, so we're in that era.
Yeah, post Return of the Jedi. So it's I think tangentially Mandalorian.
I'm a little bummed that Ezra is going to be on it. Apparently, not because I don't like Ezra or anything, but I kind of want. Ezra did not meet Luke Skywalker in any of the shows, did he?
No.
Like I kind of wanted that moment in the cartoon, you know.
I do.
Of
like the show ends pre New Hope.
Yeah,
so, Matt and I understand that, so I don't want anyone to come. Actually, you know.
Yeah, well, I was thinking I kind of wanted Rebels to last a little longer, but that's a whole other discussion.
Yeah,
and I kind of wanted that moment where Ezra met Luke.
Yeah, and, that's kind of the arena where it should have all happened, and it's like they want this notoriety, they want this legitimacy by being live action, and it's like
well, it's this fucked up thing to pump up a streaming service, and it's like streaming is such a fucking boondoggle right now, like it's a quagmire, and they just keep going forward with it, and I wonder if maybe Disney it really is the only one that can make it work, right? Like, there's just something about that Disney brand where they can make it work.
Well, that is the corporation that is too big to fail at this point.
Well, no, but right? Here's the thing. Disney has been in really terrible positions before. Like, I think people forget, like, early 2000s, they almost were hostily taken over. Like, it's happened a few times in their career. and like they've had like the boards have had to revolt like multiple times, and there seems to be these weird up and downs with Disney. And I always think about like I think if Bob Iger, one of the first things Bob Iger did was like lock down Pixar as being part of the Disney Corporation, like permanently. They had just kind of been like a studio that just had an overall picture deal. I do wonder if that hadn't happened, if the Walt Disney Company would even be what it is today, right now. Like I think something like that gave it a bit of a boost for a little bit, and that helped them get to buying Marvel and then get to buying Lucasfilm, because they at the time that happened they were not doing well in the animation department, which was their only bread and butter at the time, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And if that ship hadn't been righted, could they have done all this other stuff? And if that's the case, what would Disney look like right now had it not expanded into Marvel and Star Wars? You know,
Yeah.
like what world, and had not had this second renaissance in them almost with like the Frozen shit, right?
Yeah.
And, I just wonder if it's entirely possible Disney could go down just like any other studio.
That is true. That is true. Just like in
They
terms of like if we had to compare, they're the ones that do feel like they'll
they are
last the
just
longest.
they are just unique in the sense that they've never been purchased by like a broadcast company, or like Time, you know, like when Time Warner like owned Warner Brothers, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
when like a cable company like Comcast owns Universal, and Verizon owns someone I don't even know right now. Um,
Yeah, everyone owns someone else, and you find
yeah,
out like 3 companies own everything,
yeah, like that's
basically.
obviously that's very
Yeah.
frustrating. But like Disney kind of was the one that's like it's always just been a studio, which is kind of interesting about them. That's not like a defense of Disney. I just
Yeah.
think
No,
that's
it's
interesting.
it's fascinating, like historical context and stuff
Yeah,
like that. You know, like
uh,
we can be interested in stuff that is horrific. Not that
yeah.
that is specifically horrific
I
or
just
good.
worry you get too many people like Monday morning quarterbacking like fucking $1 billion corporations.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, what
and,
they should do is remake the sequel trilogy so the fans can enjoy it.
mm,
I threw up in my mouth as I was saying that joke.
yeah, I mean, if that ever happens, that is really like we're just done. Like at
Yeah,
that point,
yeah,
it's like
no.
we're done. We're done. Like we're not doing any more Star Wars bullshit anymore. Uh,
Yeah.
but hey, and that won't work. By the way, if you're even thinking about it, it won't work.
Hmm.
Like, but I question. I don't know. You know, because right, like we
No,
talked
it's
about
it's
this.
never worked.
We talked about this right before recording though, but they are remake. They are doing Harry Potter as a TV series now.
Yeah.
And although who knows, like that is such a like we're trying to pump up our portfolio at Warner Media that like
Yeah.
it could just be a flex thing. I
It
hope to God it really doesn't happen.
I
Like
do too. I mean, we have a lot to angrily yell about righteously because of just the unfortunate,
yeah,
horrific person behind that all.
yeah,
There's also the angle that like what like grown adults are gonna be in this show. Horrible transphobes, obviously.
yeah.
But
It's
then
what's
like
that thing?
the kids get wrapped up in it. It's like you're gonna fucking
Yeah, that was
photograph
my
these
tweet.
kids
Was
and
just like it's gonna be
everything. It's like
horrific to watch the press cycle for this show when it happens. Like,
and then the flip side of that, mine like if you don't have to separate any of that from it, right? But the
yeah,
flip side of that is like fans that will still ride or die with Harry Potter. Like I'm always, unfortunately, I always gonna have a soft spot for it. I don't need any
I
more of
think
it,
I'm
obviously,
officially done. Like
which is probably the better way to go.
Wait,
But
wait,
I'm
I
just
gotta ask you
saying,
though,
like,
just
uh-huh.
because I think this would be. When was the last time you actually read the books?
Oh, I have not read the books in
Yeah,
over a
because I
decade now.
I
Yeah,
reread them like early in the pandemic when like everyone was grabbing for toys to like help them get through the end of the world.
yeah,
So like it was one of those things I revisited and I like read it and I enjoyed myself and then I was also like I will never read these books again.
yeah.
Like
I haven't, and I don't need to. But I just want to say this point really quick that the people that are still ride or die for Harry Potter don't want a remake of Harry Potter.
mhm.
So who is this for? This is just for J.K. Rowling.
They although they say that now, I wonder how people are going to feel if like they start dropping trailers for it, right?
Well, the announcement is so fucking gross and cynical. It's the John Williams theme
Well, that was
with the
yeah.
movie font and
It's like we're
the
doing it
Hogwarts thing.
closer to the books. We can't wait. And then it's like all the iconography in that little teaser is from the movies.
Yeah,
Like it's such bullshit. It's gonna be awful. And like it's one of those things where like a lot of that stuff was cut out of the books for a reason. And if you're going to put that stuff back in, you're going to have to fundamentally change it. And that is something that Rowling will not stand for. Because
Yeah.
they do say she's going to have like direct involvement with the show. And 100% what that is her trying to reclaim the legacy of Harry Potter from progressives. It's
Yeah.
like, don't think that isn't like a calculated move on her part.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And the original 3 actors, like they were in that Hogwarts Legacy
yeah.
HBO special or whatever, but the 3 lead actors, Harry, Ron, and Hermione, they have come out in support of trans people.
Yeah.
And I bet she's not happy about that.
And
So
like
fuck her.
Radcliffe did like a whole like thing on TV about
Yeah.
it. Like, and,
Like whatever. Like we don't know any of these people.
yeah.
Never attach
Well,
yourself to famous people. But like, isn't that just like?
because transphobes are really calm and sane people just trying to make an argument that I disagree with. They then started attacking his girlfriend for being a secret man.
Wow,
Which
transphobes are the worst people ever.
I know, like it's one of those things like like it is a like the way they go about it. It's like we shouldn't even be entertaining this.
No.
Like under the best circumstances, I just want to. No one listening disagrees with me, but like if you want to be unreasonably charitable to these people, and I want to stress it would be unreasonably charitable. What these people believe is that there is no such thing as transgenders. It is that they consider it a form of mental illness, right? That like it's people who don't like that body dysmorphia is mental illness and it needs to be quote unquote cured. But none of their rhetoric is talking about helping these people, right? Like you're still alleging that these people have a problem, and it's like that should be all the tell you need, right? That it is just bigotry in some sort of masked up form, and it's not, and they're not even really trying that hard. Like at this point, they're trying to act like these people are a threat to society, which is like they didn't even try the reasonable route. But hey, at least they're not pretending. I guess at least we don't have to do that for people who, at least we don't have the. I'm not against gay people. I just don't think they should get married because that is a religious thing, right?
Yeah,
Which was
the old religious thing I heard at my high school from one of my teachers was like, well, they should just have something else not called marriage. They can have a civil union or something.
Yeah, they should have something separate but equal. Now, when have we used that term before in American history? Anyway. Yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe here there's a cat yelling at me right now.
No. The cat is yelling at the transphobes.
Yeah, that's right, Logan.
Fuck off.
Get him.
Oh, now Logan stops meowing.
Okay. Yeah, he's just he wants food, even though it's an hour until dinner, buddy.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's coming out. Fuck J.K. Rowling. Fuck capitalism. Fuck the transphobes. Andor.
Yeah! Woo!
So
the show where it argues it is actually morally correct to bomb police stations.
I mean, hey, it's fun. I mean, this is the real benefit of a fantasy series, is that you can write a story like that, and then people aren't smart enough to realize that's what the show is saying.
I know. At this point, it's not for them anymore. It is a fantasy for Diego Crespo.
Yeah.
Everyone knows the show is so my shit. 1 billion stars. It opens with a man shooting 2 security guards, and then more police officers in space get
super
murked.
Anti-cop show. Like it's just like that is one of the most anti-cop things to come out in a while, and that's crazy to think about for a Star Wars show.
God bless you, Tony Gilroy.
It's kind of nuts, and like considering how long this was in production, this was kind of before the big kind of shift, like around cops happened.
Yeah.
So, yeah, crazy. Now here's what I don't like about Andor. No, all right.
Go.
Andor easily the best live action thing they've put out so far, right? I like it. Its politics agree with me. I'm not sure how relevant that is, but hey.
It's nice. We can say, hey, it's nice when something's like, no. This is, yeah.
It's funny that, like, people are so, like, terrified of, like, Antifa, whatever the fuck that is. And, like, a blatantly Antifa show comes out and, like, nerds are like, this is actually fine and cool. Like, it's kind of hysterical to me. Like, but that happened. It has a similar problem to a lot of the other stuff right now, which I think it just takes itself way too seriously in terms of what it is, you know? Like, it's not, it's a really interesting show. And it's a really, like, I like the directions it's going in. It's visually the best looking show. It's got the right ideas. It's going in the right direction. It's not really that fun to watch. It's actually a little dark and depressing, and not in a way that I find that engaging. And it to me, I'm talking about how it's funny that like such a blatantly anti-cop show could get by nerds because it's got nerd shit in it. But at the same time, it does kind of trivialize those things when you take this stuff that seriously in a nerd show, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's just what bugs me. It's a little too self-serious. I wish someone looked like they were enjoying the fact they were in the Star Wars universe for at least 5 minutes on the show. There doesn't really seem to be anyone like that in it. Andy Serkis kind of had that vibe, but that's just might be Andy Serkis's vibe.
No more than 12. Oh
Yeah,
my god, it's the most hype shit ever.
yeah. It's a lot of fun. If you're only going to watch one show, it's good. I mean, no, it's not fun though. That's my mistake. It's really interesting. I didn't find it that fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I just think it's a little too self-serious in the way that I thought Rogue One was a little too self-serious, you know?
Yeah.
And again, I'm not saying that there has to be like, what do you mean your name's Andor? Or whatever the fuck dumb jokes people would do. Being like,
They fly now?
yeah, they call it a
fly
lightsaber,
now?
but it ain't that light.
Wow.
You work for the dark side, but you have a lightsaber. That doesn't make sense. Which is a joke they will make at some point. But
Yeah, that was pretty terrible.
yeah, it's bad enough to be on these shows.
No, I agree. I fear for my sanity at this
So
point.
that's my only real note, is that it's a little too self-serious.
I remember another note you had that I actually agree with. You had mentioned to me, I forget if it was on a show or just when we were talking, that in a perfect Star Wars show world, this is a plot in that show.
Yeah.
And there are other Star Wars things attached to it. Like Andor is not going to have, in my opinion, like some of the best Mandalorian stuff with the one-offs or whatever, right?
Yeah.
It's not that type of show. But I think the ultimate perfect Star Wars show, which maybe we could even get, not that we need it. Star Wars to me is cinema, it's movies. But Star Wars at its best is all these different genres together.
Yeah.
You know? Like, I can defend the prequels more now because people have come around to them, but like Attack of the Clones is 80 different movies together. Right?
Yeah.
It's a film noir.
And
it's Flash Gordon.
Yeah.
It's Blade Runner.
It's
a Western.
although
It's the Searchers.
To this day, when people say Attack of the Clones is like film noir, or they go like, it's kind of like The Third Man, like it does make me want to throw a glass at your face.
It's true. I'm sorry. You can disagree with it, but it's true.
But it's like a bad version.
Sure.
I'm sorry. I even say that as someone who's like mildly positive on those things. I'm like, it's not. I don't know, man. It's
no. Hey, you don't have to like it, but I think we all agree. Like, no, it is a lot of different genres together.
It is trying to be that.
Okay, but Star Wars at its best, I think you and I both agree. Many different genres in one beautiful cinematic package, and Andor is one genre done incredibly well. Maybe the best well. That's not an actual. That's barely English.
Well, I would say like the original Star Wars is a great movie because it's about fucking the Tin Man and the Scarecrow teaming up. They steal some plans. They end up on Dune. They meet a young hotshot who likes to ride his bikes, who they then go to talk to the wizard Merlin and says, we need to get off this planet. So they team up with a cowboy and the Wolfman to go to the evil castle where a shogun lives. And that's why Star Wars is great. Like,
I agree.
They can save a princess from the evil dungeons where there are creepy monsters and a bunch of soldiers running around. And also they're space Nazis. Like, it's every movie, but like they know how to use each piece correctly, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And to me, that's what's fun about it. And Andor is kind of like, Andor is a spy and he hangs out with other spies, right?
Right.
And it's like, okay.
Well, he doesn't start off as a spy,
Well, yeah, obviously, but
which is actually something I think is worth
I'm just
noting.
lamenting the loss of old genre television,
No,
which
you're totally
is
correct.
which is like Star Trek: The Next Generation, where you're like, this episode's a Data episode, this episode's a Picard episode, this episode's a Worf episode, so you can skip it. Like it's,
Hey,
am I wrong?
they're not the best.
It's not his fault. They didn't know how to. Worf gets better on Deep Space Nine.
Yeah,
Like,
well, but Worf is great regardless. Like that's a testament to the character of
yeah,
Worf and Michael
he's
Dorn.
good, but not in
Everyone,
like episodes about him, unfortunately.
no, but everyone loves Worf. No one watches those Star Trek shows with him on movies, and they're like, "Yeah, Worf sucks." Everyone's
Yeah.
like, "Worf is awesome,"
Mhm.
even though he gets the worst material.
Yeah, exactly. So, but you know what I'm saying? Like all those characters have a completely different vibe. And Star Wars is like the best version of that because again, it can be a like fantasy western samurai love story in outer space.
Hmm.
Like and you can do all sorts of different versions of that. And instead they kind of just pick one character and they just follow him. And Andor was the only one that went like maybe we should make the story character driven, and
Yeah.
as a result, it looks like the best show, and it is of the shows. I you know I just want some fun, good Star Wars, and they're not. They're getting so lore obsessed. It's just
Hmm.
sad. And
Which I
there was
mean
a
is also just like why Andor's refreshing because it's not really about the lore,
it,
but like
well no
Tony
it
Gilroy,
is it is about the lore.
you think
Like, I'm
so?
sorry. It just, but like, it's by default because of the era it's set in. It's still about Mon Mothma shit. It's still about the story that Andor is involved in. He has no business being in because we already know how it started and how it resolves, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
just a character study. That's why these shows have to be character driven. We know the beginning, middle, and ends of these stories. Like, that's why you have to pick something character driven that's really simple, that is about very simple things. And no matter what, you make a show like Andor, it's going to by default be lore driven. We're going to see how the rebellion forms and how this shit happens and how that shit happens. And it's done best on this show, and it's still the least interesting stuff on the show, right? Like,
I'm gonna hesitate to say that because you know what? In the year 2023, I did not expect one of my favorite Star Wars characters to be fucking Mon Mothma now. I really like Mon Mothma in
yeah, it's
Andor
fine.
a lot. No,
That's fine.
that
That
stuff
actress is
is so
good.
fascinating.
I just don't care. I'm sorry. Like Mon Mothma is like she stands at the thing for like 1 second and goes like many Bothan spies died to get us this, and I'm like that's cool. I don't need any more. Like
No, that's the thing. Like, I don't need any more. I
I
didn't
don't need
want
to
any
know how
more.
Mon Mothma fucking functions.
No, but it's like, okay, you know what? You're right. This is lore based, but the fact that it's like it's well written of its own accord. Like, this does not need to
Yeah,
exist. This is a
it's doing
Wikipedia
good stuff
article.
with the material. I just don't like. It's like a. It's a. I'm 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 opposed to it on a fundamental level. Now, not enough to be like fucking die show. Like I'm not like against it. It's
Hmm.
just again like I mean it's a good show. I think more you'll get more out of this than most of the other Star Wars stuff on the market right now. It's just for me it fundamentally brushes up against what I like about Star Wars and entertainment in general. And sometimes you can get away with doing stuff that I like. I'm like, I don't really like this, but it's well made enough. And then you could push it a little too far, kind of like Ari Aster just did, going
I have
from
not seen
Midsummer
that yet.
to Beau is Afraid. Yeah, people like it. They're wrong. Nah, you're fine if you like it, but I hated it, kind of. And it's not shocking it won't make money. And I'm not saying I'm rooting for that. I'm just saying if anyone thought that was going to make money, they deserve to be locked in an asylum.
Whoa.
But Arkham, they got to go to Arkham because they're fucking jokerizing as we speak. Because there's no way a movie like that would have made money ever. But even if like as a society we cared about cinema, because it's for 5 people. But well, there's a lot of silly stuff in it. I'm just also annoyed everyone's finally realizing what I've been saying for years, which is that fucking Ari Aster's a comedy guy. Like, it's just him going full comedy. And guess what? It's not as funny.
Oh, well, I'm still gonna check it out. I haven't seen Babylon yet
Nathan
either.
Lane is great in it.
Yeah,
I'll give
that's
it
what I was
that.
hoping for. That's
But
all.
he's not in a ton of it, so.
Nah,
But
I kind of saw that coming.
he's in more than I thought he would be. But still, I could have used more.
Mm.
Um, he says "my man" a lot, and it's pretty funny.
All right.
Um, and
I
Parker Posey's in it too, which I didn't know.
oh yay, she's always great.
And Stephen McKinley Henderson.
Okay.
And Richard Kind, but he's in the trailer.
Yes, that I did see. That I did
He,
know. I mean,
he doesn't show up until way late in the thing.
mm.
But hey, it's a movie, and it's a movie that's very well made ultimately, but stands in direct opposition of what I believe about life
Oh,
and the universe and love in general. So
oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
I think this is a complete insult to life itself. But you might like it.
Yeah, I might.
Who am I to say?
I just want to mention a couple more things
What the
about
fuck
Andor
is
really quick.
Ghosted?
We're not doing that. We're not
Everyone
unpacking all that.
I logged in the letterbox for 2 seconds and everyone is posting 1-star reviews of Ghosted. I've never fucking heard of this thing.
Oh, I don't have time to get into that, but it's a Chris Evans, Ana de Armas action comedy romantic vehicle, and it's apparently very bad, and it looked very bad, so I'm not watching it. Anyways, a couple more things about Andor. The original plan for the show was to span 5 seasons, each season taking over the course of a year of Cassian Andor's life. The first season basically broke everyone involved because it was such a huge endeavor. Tony Gilroy and Diego Luna announced that, like, hey, to the Disney people and Kathleen Kennedy, like, hey, we can't do this until we're in our 70s, so can we wrap it up in the next season? They said yes, and so now season 2, every story arc, which is like 3 to 4 episodes, will be taking place over the course of a year, so seasons are condensed into mini arcs, so it'll be like mini movies. I'm curious about how that's going to work, because pacing was not an issue for me in the first season of Andor.
I don't like anything you just said.
Well, I'm sorry.
Other than
but...
life is too short, it's totally fine, Tony Gilroy, if you don't want to work on this until you're 70.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's like, oh, Tony Gilroy should do all Star Wars. And even I'm not saying that. And definitely now, he definitely doesn't want to do that, you know? But I mean, that's the other thing. He's like an actual, like, artist. He's a legendary fucking screenwriter.
It is a little sad that the one guy that kind of like actually put effort into these shows is like, I can't do this.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's why, because he's putting effort into it.
Are we just starting to realize Star Wars is like unsustainable just in general? Like,
yeah, it can't go on forever.
Well, no, I'm not even saying that, but just like, it's that thing of like when it came out later that like The Force Awakens cost over $400 million to make. Like,
wait, what?
Yeah, it cost like an insane amount of money.
I believe that, but what?
Yeah.
I didn't hear that.
I remember hearing that at some point.
Oh, because of like marketing and stuff like that, right?
But not just that, like the fucking whole thing. Like,
I'm looking it up right now. 447 billion allegedly.
Million.
Billion. Whoa.
The billion would be a real problem.
Now, billion.
Bob Iger would not be the head of the Walt Disney Company.
No.
If that happened.
What the fuck? Well, you know what probably fucking did that. What made it cost that much was the fucking delays.
I mean, possibly.
This is not even like me hating on.
Although, what did
the
Last
movie.
Jedi cost? All right, that one it says 317 is like the highest estimate. So
okay, I'm willing to bet that maybe that crew that made that Force Awakens and Rise of Skywalker, they tend to make movies off the seat off the edge of their seats, off the seat of their cufflinks or whatever the fuck the saying is.
Yeah,
right?
because then you look at I looked up Rise of Skywalker now, and that one is back to being like possibly cost $416 million.
Yeah.
So,
and I think when you head into a production without a set game plan, at least, you tend to run into issues, and issues cost time, and time costs money, and money is power, and power is pizza. So it becomes a mess, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And that gets very expensive when you have a lot of messes.
I mean,
I love The Force Awakens still, though. I just want to make that clear.
How much movies would cost, though, if like they were making big budget movies, but like not breaking everyone while making them.
Maybe, yeah.
So I don't know. This business doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. It doesn't make sense to anyone. Everyone who says it makes sense is lying.
But honestly, if that's how expensive these movies are, they should just go back to the fucking Lord of the Rings model of just filming 3 together. Like, That's got to be a better solution than trying to do like stopping and starting constantly.
You'd think so.
But I don't know. I don't know. How much did Endgame cost?
I'm gonna guess 300 million, but let's take a look.
It says 400 million is the highest estimate.
Where the
Uh,
are they adding like $100 million to all these like box office budgets? Like, are they
I don't know.
announcing those costs like after? Because like for a while it was like, oh yeah, 200, 300 million,
Well, they were.
which
What was weird is they were saying movies are like, yeah, it cost 200 million for like a long time, and it's like we all know shit's got more expensive. Why haven't movie budgets gone up? And then I think they started to admit that movies were costing more to make.
yeah, like I
So,
think one of the other ones, and I love this movie. I'm not criticizing it. It's like The Green Knight. When everyone's like, "Oh, it costs like $15 million." I don't know what the cost was. It's not $15 million.
mhm.
There's no way. And that's not a negative towards the movie or anyone involved with it. It's just like that's just not reality.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's no way that's true.
I mean, you never know.
I mean, here's the thing. People can make movies that look that big and that good for that amount of money.
Mhm.
Everything Everywhere All at Once. What did that cost? Like 20 million, 30 million?
Yeah.
Right? And that's a great looking movie. You can even hate that movie. It's not a bad looking movie. But other movies don't look that good and they cost a lot more. So it's like you never really know, but you also know enough that this
I don't know,
industry
man.
is
I've
full of
thrown on
bullshit.
plenty of movies where the budget is like 80 million, and then you watch it, and it's like this looks like it cost $5 to make.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So,
that's what I'm saying. Like some expensive movies look like dog
yeah.
shit. You know?
So I don't
I
know.
mean, everyone always does the memes now when a
Maybe just
Marvel movie comes out, and it's like, this is what that costs that much.
yeah.
You know?
And I think it's the mistake. I think Hollywood maybe it would be cheaper if they gave them more time. I don't know, like because I think Hollywood thinks if they pay more money, they can get all this shit done faster, which is all they really care about.
Yeah, which is
And
also just not. It's
yeah,
antithetical to art
yeah, and it's but it's
and
unsustainable. It
life.
just doesn't work, right?
Yeah,
So, all
which
right.
which does lead us to the streaming boom
Yeah,
and failure.
yeah.
The streaming bomb, I guess, is a proper
Uh-huh.
saying.
Anyway,
Yeah.
what about the Bad Batch?
I haven't seen it yet, but I'm interested. Like I'm not even like being negative here. Like I
Yeah, I
haven't
haven't
seen
seen
a
it
single
either.
thing from it.
I think that show has a big hurdle that it's called the Bad Batch, which is the name of a dystopian movie about cannibals.
Yeah. Have you seen that movie?
Yeah, you know what? I'm like the one guy who kind of enjoyed it.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I did not.
But it's one of those where like I kind of ignore what's like actually happening in it and just kind of like the look of it.
I
Like,
get that. I completely get that.
and so, I mean that seems to be that director's thing at this point. Um, although didn't like their most recent movie, didn't that get like better kind of a response?
I
Or
don't
did I
know.
just make that up?
I think you made that up.
Okay. Why?
I mean, you might be right. I don't know.
Did something happen that I
No,
wasn't
no.
paying attention to?
I genuinely don't know. Yeah.
Um, you gave a review of their most recent like hour long film and called
Oh
it
yeah,
tunishly cynical, but does what it says on the tin.
yeah. I kind of liked it.
Yeah, there's something
um,
they got. That person has a real interesting vibe, and I don't know where that comes
what the
from.
fuck?
But the one I was talking about was the Mona Lisa and the Blood Moon, which I kind of heard people were kind of positive on, but then I didn't hear anyone talk about it. So,
Oh.
um, but
Yeah. What was the fucking Cabinet of Curiosities? That's the one she did,
oh,
and
okay,
yeah, she did an episode of that, and I again very cynical and like comically so, but I did like it.
yeah.
But I think I also liked most of that show more than most people.
You know what? I have yet to check it out. I've been meaning to, but
I'll give you a list of episodes to watch.
no, I want to
I'll
watch
text
the
it
whole
on.
fucking thing.
Okay.
It's been a while since there's been like an anthology show like that, you know.
When you get to the David Pryor one, the
Mhm.
autopsy, you'll be like, all right, now we're here. Now
All
we're
right, that's
really
fine.
starting.
Mhm.
Yeah. I
David
loved that
Pryor?
one. David Pryor, yeah, from The Empty Man.
Oh! I was thinking of a different David Pryor.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved his episode. His is my favorite.
All right. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So Bad Batch. I've heard good things. It's Dave Filoni animated. That stuff tends to be fine. So
Yeah, I know that was like a jokey response, but it's like, yeah, that stuff tends to work out
yeah.
for most people, you
What
know.
else do we have? The day this drops, we get new visions. Which we both
Yeah.
signed off on Star Wars Visions being the best thing that they've done so far. In terms of the expanded universe stuff, you probably say Andor now. I'm still in the bucket of Star Wars Visions being the best expanded universe thing as of right now.
My pitch, I guess, would be marry those two elements: the
Mm-hmm.
best of Visions, the best of Andor, and I have the Diego Star Wars that I want. Which I don't need, but I would like. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
We're getting we're
I'm
getting
really
stuff
excited about that.
we're getting stuff from Ardman is doing an episode, which is an interesting thing
That's
here.
so fucking. I mean, that's perfect, right?
And there's one being done by the studio that animated Legend of Korra.
Yeah,
So,
Studio Mir.
yep, man. So it's interesting. I'm looking forward to it. Uh,
Yeah. I mean that back when we were optimistic about like life and cinema and Star Wars especially, the whole thing when they announced they're making new Star Wars movies, it was like, oh, we can get this type of Star Wars, this type of Star Wars, and like that's faded with time,
yeah, they
right? All
kind of
things
just
fade.
decide what if everything looked and tasted exactly the same.
Yeah,
But
and like even if they hadn't done that, like the excitement would fade because that's just a
you know
normal part of
what?
life, right?
Here's something I gotta say. I
Okay.
think something that is hurting cinema right now in terms of like its appeal. I think the sort of vibrant colors of something like Super Mario Brothers, I think that's more appealing to younger people, and this sort of older, dingy, lived in, gritty Star Wars stuff is starting to fade in appeal. I think that's part of the shift we're seeing right now. Um, I think
I
part of
think you're correct.
I think part of I think it's part of the success of the John Wick films too.
Mm-hmm.
That like there's kind of like they're more interested in the flashy look than looking grounded in any way. So that's actually good because I've hated that this has been the dominant style for so long. But
I'm also in agreement there.
so
Yeah.
it's maybe why I find the show more appealing. It's maybe why I don't freak out when someone shows up with green hair in Star Wars and someone goes, "This is the end of culture." Uh, but hey, uh,
They wokeified Star Wars. It's not like George Lucas is like an insane leftist or
yeah.
something.
I mean,
Um,
I don't
yeah.
even have time to unpack any of that.
No, you don't need to. It's not worth
Yeah,
it. They don't deserve that time,
yeah.
basically.
I mean,
Um,
I just make the point that like the people who believe that are like either literal children, right?
yeah.
Which is like whatever. Like I feel bad, but you have to have your dumb beliefs for a little bit, or dumb adults, or adults with really shitty agendas they're trying to push on people,
Mm,
and they don't like it has nothing to do with Star Wars. Like they just want to push that, and um,
yeah.
eh, you know, it's like that weird Mr. Beast backlash thing that's been happening right now.
Oh yeah. What is that guy?
No, Mr. Beast, like he's like the biggest YouTuber right now, but he has someone who I believe is non-binary who's a friend, and
Mm-hmm.
started presenting more femininely. And someone made a video about it that was like, it was just like nakedly like transphobic and shit, like, and it's led to Mr. Beast being like, "Hey, I'm pro trans people," and like the internet has exploded as a result. So
Oh, okay. I missed all of that.
yeah, it's one of those things where no one our age watches Mr. Beast, right?
Yeah, that's
But it would
probably
be
it.
like I don't know, like if SpongeBob endorsed gay rights in like the early 2000s, right?
I
And
don't know why that made me laugh. I was like, yeah, that would be awesome.
do you remember when
You
that
know?
guy sued SpongeBob because he said it was pushing a gay agenda on children?
No. Whoa.
That happened when I was in middle school. I remember that.
Huh. No,
So if you want to talk about fucking people like crazy conservatives thinking media brainwashes children into alternative lifestyles, they literally thought SpongeBob was turning kids gay. Like it's the same fucking dumb shit over and over again. Ugh. But Visions looks good. Let's have fun, everyone.
Yeah. And the point I just wanted to make was that, like, it reminds me of that time when it felt like Star Wars could really go anywhere. I think
Yeah.
of even like Gareth Edwards when he was on the press run for Rogue One,
Hmm.
and people were asking him like, "Well, who would you like to see make a Star Wars movie?" And one of his favorite filmmakers is Andrea Arnold.
Hmm.
So he was like, I would kill to see an Andrea Arnold Star Wars, what that would look like. And it's like, even at that time in 2016 when Rogue One was coming out, I kind of felt like a possibility,
Yeah.
like a lower budget Star Wars movie or
Yeah.
something like that. And that's just gone for right now, you
Yeah,
know. Which I'm not like broken up about it. I'm not like depressed. I'm just like, oh, that's kind of a bummer, you know.
yeah, it is. I mean, the bad version of that is that like if suddenly it's like what's fucking George Miller's Star Wars look like and shit like that. It's a weird like flattening of culture that like you don't totally want. So
Yeah,
I
that's
think
true.
I think it's partly why we've backed off the pedal of that. As terms of film fans, I think that's why you see less of it. But also, it was literally like Ryan Johnson put his toe in the water and people exploded. So,
Yeah.
because like
James
honestly,
Mangold. Oh, sorry.
before Last Jedi even came out, that was the general fan attitude of could you imagine X person doing Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
And then like that's just they just abandoned that because they realized they don't actually want that. So, um, but hey, because like
I mean,
because their belief is that Ryan Johnson like went rogue making Last Jedi, and
yeah,
like that's what happened when you give artists too much control.
yeah. That
He did some sort of like radical fucking movie when it's like one of the most like straight down the middle Star Wars films ever made. Like, eh. That's what's baffling to me. Like that's like I don't like hype up the Last Jedi as much anymore. Not because of it, but like to me, it's like that. It's just a fucking Star Wars movie, man. There's nothing. It's not reinventing the wheel. It's doing exactly what these type of movies have done over and over again, and people just couldn't handle it, man. It's so weird to me.
Yeah, I mean, I was just gonna mention to the point where like James Mangold, the guy who was on the Boba Fett movie when they
Mm.
were still making movies regularly, said he was like wary of coming out. He wouldn't say or confirm or deny that he was doing the Boba Fett movie, but that it's like out there that that's what he was attached to at that time. He was saying like he's wary of doing a Star Wars anything because he saw what happened with Ryan Johnson and was like, I don't know if I would do that in the future.
Yeah.
Anyways, they just announced him to doing a Jedi origin story, but
Oh
you know.
fuck you.
Yeah,
But
but
uh,
for a second there, it was like, who the fuck wants to do
here's
Star
one. Look,
Wars?
if you're gonna do these series, fine. Stop. No more spin-off movies. I don't want a fucking spin-off movie. Like we really have to stop that.
I will just say really quickly that we are going a little long, which is fine,
Yeah.
but I feel like maybe we can kind of wrap up on
Yeah,
this
yeah.
note.
No, no, I'm basically
Yeah.
done. The only other thing is like the acolytes coming out, which whatever. Who the fuck?
No, I'll say before we end on your rant because I think I'm going to agree with you on that point too.
The Russian doll woman's
Leslie
working
Headland,
on the
yeah,
acolyte, which is
she's
like
saying the right things to
yeah.
me. She's
Well,
doing the Tony Gilroy thing of like, not really a fan per se, but like, just someone who's putting in the work to make
but
a
also
good
but
story.
she better be careful because I don't know if she knows this, but she is a woman, and when women say that, they get death threats in the mail. So
No, yeah. Best of luck to her, and
yeah,
I'm so sorry for what will happen.
yeah,
It's just going to, and that
because
should not be okay. First of all,
mm,
I am looking forward to that show a lot, especially
mm.
because I think she's even come out and said like not Palpatine,
All right,
pre
that
Palpatine.
was like the big worry when we first heard about it was
Yeah,
that
I
it was
was
going to be
like,
the Palpatine.
fuck.
Because that's that Star Wars show that didn't get made when Lucas was there, which sounds like it would have been the worst show ever. Which would have been about Palpatine and like he was like in love and shit, like, which is just the fucking Darth Vader story again. But hey,
Yeah,
like George Lucas has like four ideas.
yeah, but they're really good.
Well, he has four like story ideas and then like a bunch of insane visual ideas. Like,
Yeah.
but hey, um, so the acolyte, we'll see what happens there. Um, Skeleton Crew, with Jude Law. He's another Jedi. There's a lot of Jedi. I don't like the Jedi. Stop
Is
with the
he a
Jedi.
Jedi?
It says Jude Law as a Jedi.
Oh, I did not know that. I
Yeah,
wasn't looking forward to this already. I'm not looking forward to it now.
yeah. Stop with the Jedi,
Yeah.
please.
Although Carrie Condon's in it, and she was worthy of a Best Supporting Actress win. She was nominated last time. Totally
Yeah,
fine. She didn't win it. Um, she's a great actress.
she's good. There's good
Her in Star
actors.
Wars got me more excited about this show than anything else.
Yeah.
Basically,
Did they announce another? Did they announce another movie that they were working on, like a spin-off film?
they did. I guess you don't know what it
I
is.
don't. I remember it happening, and I remember not being happy, but I immediately forgot it because I moved on with my life. But
Okay. It is I mean, we've known it was going to happen, but it's officially a movie that's going to play in theaters. It is the Mandalorian finale. It is
I
going to
mean,
be the
whatever.
culmination of that
Fine,
universe.
fine, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, whatever.
And Dave Filoni is going to direct it. And you know what? For all my gripes, don't think that's the worst idea.
Yeah, no,
I really don't.
it's their attempt to see, like, does the streaming stuff carry over to theaters?
Yeah. Although, here's the thing. I am going to ask everyone to collectively fucking riot with me if Han, Luke, and Leia show up as CGI abominations again.
Yeah, that's one of those ones where, like I'm usually day one Star Wars guy. That's one where, like, if I hear that's what they do in it, I'm not seeing it. Like,
Yeah.
so,
Sorry.
yeah,
I'm done if they
yeah,
do that with
yeah.
everything Filoni.
Skeleton Crew. It's supposed to be like Stranger Things. I don't know what the fuck that means.
It just means it's a young adult show.
It means
That's all it means.
it means look how much money Stranger Things made. That's what it means. But
No, yeah.
Tales of the Jedi have not watched. Have heard it's all right.
I like it. I saw it because I heard Yaddle was in it.
Oh yeah, Yaddle's back. I was always asking where Yaddle was.
No, it's just like I just like that name, and I'm like, oh, it's Girl Yoda when I was younger, right? Yeah, maybe don't go in with that mindset. Not going to spoil anything, but there's not that much Yaddle.
I don't care if there's that much Yaddle. I just need people to acknowledge that Yaddle was a thing that happened.
Yeah, no, it's very funny, right?
I also think it's very funny that, like, we don't have a name for Yoda's species. That
hey,
George Lucas totally dropped the existence of Yaddle on us. No lines in Phantom Menace. They never acknowledge Yaddle again.
And they don't explain why they don't acknowledge her.
They don't bother to explain what the fuck Yoda even is and why his species seems to be so important among the Jedi. Like, because even in Knights of the Old Republic, there's like a Yoda-looking guy in that. So
I forgot about that. But to Filoni's further credit, again, he's a guy I'm trusting again more and more, really. Like, I think my hangups with this current streaming Star Wars stuff really is Favreau, unfortunately. And I don't even hate him. I'm just like, come on, man. I've seen you do better. But Filoni was asked on, like, a carpet premiere for the Mando finale or something like that. Like, are we going to see Baby Yoda's parents? And, like, we're going to discover the origins of the species. And he was like, no, that's Mando's his family. Like, that's really what the show's about. That's what the character's about.
That's the exact right thing to say. We're going to find out. We're going to get those answered.
Eventually,
when they're out of ideas 5 years from now, we are 100% getting those things answered.
You're probably right. But him saying that and, like, not like, half-assing it.
Hey, what are the chances Baby Yoda is in the new Star Wars movie?
There's a 1,000% chance. Yeah. I can say this now because they're just going to make a Rey movie regardless of my existence, right? Like, I'm not going to make that movie. There's no world where that happens right now, right? My pitch, there's no story attached to this. My pitch, though, if I was in a meeting with Kathleen Kennedy and the executives of Lucasfilm and Walt Disney Corporation, I walk in with a hand-drawn poster from a much more talented artist than myself.
No, it should be drawn by you, so it looks like...
Okay, the poster is
and
Rey.
You should draw it with your non-dominant hand.
Okay, Rey looking up at the night sky with her little X-wing helmet or whatever, right? Her lightsaber in one hand, a backpack strap over the other shoulder, with Baby Yoda in the little satchel. That's the poster.
But I want
$1 billion.
Baby Yoda should be slightly more mature by this time, in my opinion.
I agree.
Like, give Baby Yoda a voice.
Yeah.
But
which they will not do in the show because Favreau's a coward, but, like, they should do that.
I'm fine with Baby Yoda. Like, cause Baby Yoda's kind of like, I'll give him this. Baby Yoda's kind of like a fun, silent character, you know? Like, they at least know how to get reaction shots out of a puppet. Like,
no, they do. That stuff's impressive. Like, everyone makes fun of the walk right now, and I'm like, no, I like that.
Yeah, it's the best. What the fuck is wrong with you people?
Like, all the stuff people are, like, really criticizing. I'm like, no, this is the good stuff. Like, what are you talking about? And you know what? Even fucking further, the stuff I liked in the finale of The Mandalorian. Baby Yoda doing Force stuff is really cool.
Baby Yoda doing Force stuff. It's what I like about it is that it's, like, always presented as, like, really cool, but it's also, like, just super funny. Like,
it's super goofy, but I'm like, yes, this is it. This is what I want.
And but then people are like, it looks so cheap, and I'm just like, that's where you draw the line.
Yeah.
Like, actual acknowledgments of the filmmaking process in a way that's fun and engaging. But...
Yeah, I'm doing the SpongeBob meme thing where I'm like, that's it. That's what we've been waiting for.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll check out Tales of the Jedi at some point.
Yeah, do that.
And I think that's all I had to talk about in terms of Star Wars. Is there anything that I missed that you want to talk about?
No, I mean we kind of covered a lot today, more than I thought, frankly. Um,
Hey, you just gave Unsane 5 stars.
I did.
Because that's like a terrible film.
That's a great movie.
That's just made, but it was shot on an iPhone, so like fucking you weirdos like it.
I do like iPhone
One of my
cinema.
least favorite film watching experiences of all time. That movie.
I thought it was really good.
I don't get Soderbergh.
I know.
I don't get it.
I know.
I'm sure you guys, there's some genius happening there, but also like his movies age like milk for me. So,
Oh, okay.
I mean, like Contagion, it's not aged well.
It's aged
Side,
mostly well.
side no, Side Effects hasn't aged well. Contagion lives in some weird universe where people actually solve the problems facing us.
That's true.
Side Effects, very weird film. Unsane wasn't good to begin with. Traffic is a bad movie. I don't care what people say. Um,
Are you just angry because we talked about Star Wars too much?
there's that, but also Traffic is a bad movie.
Oh, I like it.
I like the visual ideas of it, but also it's
Yeah,
a really dumb and moralistic movie about the fucking drug crisis in America.
it's not my favorite Soderbergh.
Yeah, it should not be anyone's favorite Soderbergh, frankly. Um, Let Them All Talk. How about no?
No, that's a good
I'm just
one.
joking. I actually haven't seen that one. I just thought it'd be a funny thing to say.
You might actually like that one. Gemma Chan's in it.
Yeah. Yeah, she's great, but does she like kick anyone to death?
No,
Then I'm not interested.
no,
No offense to Gemma Chan and her acting abilities. She's a
that's
good
fine.
actress.
She is.
I would much prefer seeing other things.
No, no, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah.
The Girlfriend Experience, remember that movie? Which also became a show at some point that no one paid
Oh
attention to.
yeah. I never saw the show.
Aaron Brockovich, that's a fucking movie, man.
Oh, that's a good movie.
Yeah, Aaron Brockovich. Don't Google Aaron Brockovich. Um, Oceans, I mean, it's about Vegas. Vegas,
I love the Ocean's trilogy.
yeah, but also Vegas is like nothing makes me more upset about the state of America than looking at Las Vegas.
Valid.
So, um, but also the third one is wildly about Donald Trump. Like, it is one of those where like if they were ever going to do a fourth one, it would have to be about breaking into the fucking White House because they elected Al Pacino president of the United States.
You know what? That would kind of be awesome.
It would, but Bernie Mac's dead, so it's not happening.
Yeah, no, I don't want that. I'm just saying.
And Carl Reiner is dead.
Oh,
And
yeah.
Casey Affleck.
Yeah.
Hey.
No. He should be.
No. He passed away, and it was right after Manchester by the Sea came out, which is a great movie. So, um, hey, I haven't seen Out of Sight in forever.
That might be his masterpiece.
Okay.
Frankly.
I mean, I like fucking the source material.
Yeah. Okay. Matt, thanks for joining me to talk Star
Elmore
Wars.
Leonard's Star Wars.
Oh my God, you know what? That would kill. That's fucking Justified is kind of the vibe Mandalorian should have had.
Yeah, it really is. Like,
Yeah.
it really is. But they just won't do it because they're
No.
dumb as hell. But
No.
also, it's just they won't do the fucking, like, they got to do this weird, because it's probably because of how expensive it is, where it's 8 episodes, right? Like, and it's like, and then it's like, but they're not really 8 episodes. It's like 3 episodes divided into 8 episodes. So it's all weird and uneven. Like,
Yeah.
I don't like the model of streaming. I hate it. I hate it so much. And I hate the model of binge watching, and I hate the model of, like, getting people to just keep watching and ending everything on cliff.